Los Angeles, California, 2019. With towering skyscrapers looming over the dystopian megacity, grizzled Blade Runner Rick Deckard is called out of retirement when rogue Nexus 6 replicants steal a spaceship and enter Earth. The order is crystal clear. Deckard must seek out the illegal replicants and destroy them before they locate their creator. However, as Deckard tries to fix the mistakes of those who want to play God, unprecedented conflicting emotions could cloud his judgment. Welcome to another feature presentation of Midnight Double Feature, and on this episode we'll be covering 1982's Blade Runner, directed by Ridley Scott. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. How are you guys doing? Glad to be back here at MDF talking about Blade Runner from 1982. The Harrison Ford to my Ridley Scott, my Russell Crowe. How you doing, Zoheb?
I'm good, man. Certainly not as handsome as Harrison Ford. Maybe, yeah. Look, I'll take Russell Crowe. I mean, he's put on a few pounds, but it's good to be back, man. Well, it's been 3.5 months since we last did a pod. Straight out of Compton, which was a lot of fun. But we're back, man. We enjoyed our holidays. We had a little bit of a reset. Yeah, man. This and what a way to return with Blade Runner, man. Like this was your pick, you know?
Oh yeah. Well, and I think before proper we get into everything too, thank you guys for tuning into the episode. If you've been waiting for an episode, we really appreciate it. A lot of stuff has happened since we last recorded our episode, where I went on my honeymoon, I got married, we've gone out of the country, a lot of stuff happened, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and I honestly did not mean to take that long of a break, but sometimes life happens, you know. And as much as we love doing this podcast, it'll be 6 years next month, or this month, actually. Yeah, it'll be 6 years. And we've basically never taken a break for longer than I'd say a month, maybe. And that might seem like a long time, but when you're putting out as much content as we put out regularly, I got to be honest, it was very nice to take that break. And I feel like we've been, especially in the beginning where we were putting out 2 episodes a week, oh my God, we were banging out content.
How did we do that? It was just so, I think about that all the time in just terms of my timeline now, my schedule. I'm just how the fuck did I sit down 2 nights a week and bang out podcasts that were over an hour and a half at least long, you know?
Yeah. Well, especially because I had to be in bed at 6 o'clock at night because I had to be at work at 1 a.m. to work till 2:30. That was my schedule back then. And make a long story short, it was a nice break, but we're glad to be back. We appreciate you guys' patience. If some of you have gotten a little antsy and you pantsy waiting for an episode, well, this will be the episode for you. We decided to come back and hit it really hard with not only Blade Runner, but we're also going to be talking about Terminator 3 in the green room. Our patreon.com/Midnight Double Feature is where you can find that. It's $5 a month. You get 2 extra episodes a month, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of episodes on there now. But
interestingly, 2 very 2 movies that are trying to almost say the same thing, but in very different ways and at very different levels of success.
Yeah, well, and I think 2 very different temperatures as well, where it's a gritty detective noir and then an almost comedy action film, it's crazy, and it's the perfect it's the perfect blend of our sweet and sour sauce that we have here of let's do something that's really make you scratch your noggin, and then something that's oh dude, he went through the wall on a crane, I love doing stuff like that. That's where we have a lot of fun. But you can check that out at patreon.com/Midnight Double Feature. Excuse me, my energy drink got to me. But we are happy to be back again, and we are going to basically jump right in with our initial impressions. I almost said Harrison said, Zoheb said, this was my pick. I've loved this movie for a long time. And I think that, obviously I'm going to enjoy this if I pick it, but I'm going to turn the tables and say, what did you think about Blade Runner?
Oh, how the turntables, baby.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this might be probably like right at the top here, the best place to let you guys know that we both watched the final cut and we'll be doing our sort of
Oh, good call.
analysis on the final cut. So just because there are so many versions of this movie available out there, I think
Yeah.
the final cut is like the accepted, the version.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So Blade Runner 1982. Where do I begin with this? I guess I'll start with my history of it and how I first came to see it. I first saw it relatively late. I had obviously heard about it, throughout my life, but I first watched it in the 11th grade.
You
So
saw it
I think
earlier
I
than I
was.
did. That's what's crazy.
Oh, okay. All right. But I watched. So the reason I'm able to remember it like that is because we studied it in English. In English class,
Wow.
there
That's
was a whole
crazy.
there was a whole section on science fiction. We did this. We did War of the Worlds, not the movies, but the H.G. Wells book.
Hmm.
And we were kind of like being taught like how science fiction is. This is probably why I love science fiction so much, is because it's just instilled in me like English instilled in me how science fiction is able to convey things that other genres just simply can't.
Yes.
Um, and you know what? I bring this up to Steph all the time because Steph, for the longest time, thought that science fiction, the term science fiction, encompassed things like Star Wars, like Alien, like that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, no, science fiction. We watched Edge of Tomorrow the other day, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is great science fiction. And she's like, yeah, it is science fiction because like the time travel elements and stuff and the
Is she
aliens.
an idiot? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just
But
kidding.
like
Love
like
you,
like
Steph.
science fiction is so like all encompassing. Like you
Very
can,
broad.
yeah, you can. I know that like purists wouldn't want to, but you can bring the MCU into science fiction, right? I mean, like
Sure.
Captain America is science fiction as fuck. Like, I mean, this is a guy who's out of time because he took a super soldier serum. Like, I mean,
It's Rip Van Winkle. It's like something
exactly
straight out of like Jules Verne or H.G. Wells.
right, exactly. That being said, the way that I was introduced to Blade Runner in English was a teacher who would critically analyze the movie and start and stop it and start and stop it and pause it and things like
Oh,
that. And that was how I was introduced to this movie. And it wasn't kind of like, and I was old enough to go and seek it out myself. Obviously, I had a job like at that age, and I could just literally just buy the Blu-ray, which I think I did afterward. I'm pretty sure I have it around here somewhere still. The Blu-ray, the final cut.
nice.
But for this pod, like I went out and bought the 4K final cut.
Ooh.
It looks fantastic, by the way. The 4K. It looks fucking beautiful.
See, that tells me that you definitely like the movie because there's no way you're going out and buying a 4K of a movie you don't like.
Yeah, look, I don't want to keep you in suspense. I really, really like this movie. Like, really,
Excellent.
really
I
like it.
can
I
I
think
be
this
honest?
movie is
I
awesome.
was kind of afraid because like sometimes, man, like Monster Squad. It's like we're on totally different sides of the fence and stuff like that. But I was kind of afraid. I was like, man, I don't know. I'm afraid that he's going to throw a curveball at me and be like, I really didn't like. No, like, no.
No, I really, really love this movie, and I love everything that it has to say about humanity and class and artificial intelligence and the eyes, like in
Mm,
particular, like the ocular experience, or like there's so much here. Like we will not be touching on everything. I don't know
right.
how long this podcast is going to go, obviously, but there's no way that we'll be able to touch on everything that Philip K. Dick and Ridley Scott is trying to say in this movie.
You can do a whole
Um,
podcast about that. I know we say that every
yeah.
time, but you could literally, yeah.
But also, like I was like even in 11th grade, I was taken aback by how beautiful it was and how dingy and grimy it was at the same time. Like it was just so visually like holy shit, like this is pretty awesome. I remember being taken aback by the score because I'm a big score guy. Like I love the music in this. Vangelis absolutely fucking killing it. And without going down a rabbit hole, dude, I watched Dune Part 2 2 nights ago.
Ooh.
Hans Zimmer has gone full Vangelis. Like
Oh,
it
nice.
is it is there are moments in that movie where it's just like, holy shit, this is Blade Runner's score. Like it is. Well, obviously he did
That's
Blade Runner
awesome.
2049, but like you can hear it. Like you can hear and that's the other elephant in the room, right? Is Blade Runner 2049. And I posed a question in the after party, not whether which one was better, because that would be the easiest question to ask, but whether Blade Runner 1982 is overrated. And I firmly sit in the camp of yes, it is. I don't think that it is this big masterpiece. I don't think that it is this like holy shit, we've changed cinema for forever. I think it's
Mhm.
definitely influential. I think it's definitely insightful, and it's definitely like it takes this perspective on things that we've never seen before at that time. But you need to be able to assess these things now, in the now, dude.
Mhm.
Like, and the fact of the matter is, we have Blade Runner 2049 now. Blade Runner 2049 takes things that 1982 does and builds upon them and tells them in such a more grand way. And it's up to you whether you want to decide whether Blade Runner 2049 is longer and it's slower. It's a pretty glacial movie. It's very patient with the way it reveals itself and unpacks itself. But in my opinion, following Ryan Gosling's character, who is a replicant, and Denis Villeneuve outright telling you right at the beginning that Gosling
Yeah.
is a replicant, is kind of a masterstroke, because a lot of this movie, I wouldn't say this 1982 movie relies on the question of Deckard being artificial or not. Like, that's just the narrative that's really come out of it, though. And
Mhm.
I'm disappointed that that is a question that gets asked so frequently. And I think from memory, Ridley Scott is disappointed that that's a question that gets asked a lot, whether Deckard is a replicant, because whether he's a replicant or not, it doesn't change the message of the movie. And it doesn't, like, I don't think that it's a really important question. And we'll see whether that applies to you as well. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's a great movie. I wouldn't call it my favorite movie. I own it because it's important. Maybe that's why.
Mhm.
I think I recognize its importance, and I'm like, I need to have that. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like the sci-fi Godfather. Like you
Right.
have to
Oh,
have that movie.
absolutely. But also, I love true crime. I love the crime genre. So me being me, I love the idea of like replicants that need to be hunted down and terminated just willy nilly, and like here's this guy who is resisting the call to do so. It's so like the 40s, 50s detective noir, like
Yeah.
like because this also introduced the term noir to me as well. I didn't know what noir was before watching this movie, and I wouldn't say that this is the quintessential noir film. It's inspired by noir detective films, but just the fact that this takes place in Los Angeles at night almost exclusively. There's cigarette smoking. There's like all these like dark themes. Those all contribute to making it noir. Um, but yeah, man, I really dig this movie. I'm excited to cover it. I'm excited to hear your thoughts about it. I want to dive into some of the more existential things about this movie,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, let's go. What are your thoughts on this movie, dude?
Um, so I I I agree and disagree because I definitely do think that it's one of those, like, I don't know if I prefer 2049. I need to rewatch it again. I think obviously 2049. I think it does. I think it has way more in depth characters. I feel like you can get a lot more mileage in the characters, which is one of my biggest like gripes about this movie. Is like Deckard. I don't know. I just feel like the characters that we get insight on, we don't really, by today's standards of how we, excuse me, like something like Fall of the House of Usher, or Midnight Mass and stuff like that. Like those are just recent TV shows that I've watched. but they really, really do a lot with their characters. And those are TV shows, can't really rightfully compare them to movies. But even something like Prisoners, like I get such a good sense out of the those characters. And that's one of my only gripes about this movie is, besides like Deckard and a handful of other ones, Roy and Rachel, like I don't really feel like I know anything about like a lot of the characters and kind of understand like their place or where they're coming from. Excuse me, something's got in my throat. It's probably say it's probably the bullshit you just laid at my feet at the end of your. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, excuse me. But no, I think that it definitely is a masterpiece. I don't think it's a brilliant, perfect film, but I think that it's one of those movies where someone's like, oh, it's a great sci-fi movie, and it's like, no, it's just a great movie, and it transcends the genre that it's in. It kind of elevates above that. And even though it's the entire story is kind of rooted absolutely 100% in sci-fi, it's a story about life, and stylistically it's a story about like constantly having to look over your shoulder in these like dark alleys and rainy nights and stuff. And surprisingly, those go kind of well together, actually, it's not really all that surprising, but when you think about it, they go really, really well, like hand in hand. And I think that, I mean, for the most part, I would say that it gave birth to cyberpunk for the most part. It had such an impact that even today, one of the biggest games in the last 5 years is Cyberpunk 2077. Is that what it is?
I've been playing it. It's been fucking, now that they fixed it, oh dude, it's so good. It's so good.
I pre-ordered it, got burned, and never I got pretty far into some of it, and then I just like, no, this is unplayable.
I did the same thing. I bought it. I remember taking the day off work because it came out on the day of my birthday, and I remember being so disappointed. I was just like, this is terrible. And PlayStation were offering a refund, so I took the refund, and then a couple years later, literally like maybe 5-6 months later, I bought it. I was sorry, 5-6 months ago, I bought it again for like $15 or something, and it's incredible. It's truly incredible.
I might pick it back up. I tried it maybe like a month ago, 2 months ago, and it was like, dude, the game told me, it's like, you might as well start a new character. Like, this is going to be weird. I was like, nah, fuck this. I'm not doing that. But sorry, there's like a rash of like colds and stuff going on, right? And it's been cold as shit here. I'm sorry if my voice is a little scraggly, but that's the impact of it, that it even spread. There's even a fantastic Easter egg in that game of if you can go to the top of one of the buildings, but it's actually Roy Batty like sitting there crisscross applesauce with the bird in his hand.
Oh,
and
I didn't know that.
Dude, it's one of the first fucking things I ever found in that game. I was like, there has to be a Blade Runner Easter egg in this game.
That's
and
so
sure
cool.
enough, it was up there. But
there's also a Mad Max Fury Road reference. Like there's a the tanker, like the actual truck that Furiosa drives, is in the game, just kind of like pulled over and like partially destroyed, and there's bodies in the ground and stuff. And yeah, it's awesome.
Movies I wish we could recover.
Right.
But anyways, I absolutely love this movie. I think it's had a massive impact. I think it's incredibly important to more, it's important more so to sci-fi cinema than it is just to like cinema as a whole. But I do think that it is in the conversation of those like The Godfather, Citizen Kane, like these absolutely like massive movies that I'm like, and I'm not talking about like specifically because of the characters or the story, but like visually, this is damn near a perfect movie. I just don't, I think visually for me, it's like, I had never seen anything like that before, and I was 22 or 23 when I saw it. And I feel like you get these like hints of, obviously like some of his an older movie like Alien, but as I'm watching it, I'm like, I love the use of blues and this like Michael Mann kind of like feel.
It's aged beautifully.
Oh, dude, absolutely. And I definitely think that it's an absolutely massive movie, and but I hate when people are like, oh, its impact can't be understated. It's like, yeah, actually it can. Like this movie definitely is not seen by like the most average film goer. You know, like I feel like once you start really sitting down and kind of getting into movies, this movie is one of those that comes up. And I think that it's definitely dated in some spots. There's some really goofy shit in this movie, just to be flat out honest. That's why it's not a perfect movie to me, but visually absolutely like almost flawless. I
The
just
fact that
love the visual.
that it takes place in 2019 is
yeah, a little jarring. Oh, go ahead.
I know my thoughts are over, but I was actually thinking about something while I was watching this movie again for the pod. This another reason why I think that we have now perfected this kind of storytelling is when I look at movies like specifically like Ex Machina. I think Ex Machina tells this exact same story in a much more confined and more direct way. Because Ex Machina is all about like what makes us human, what is positive and negative about the human experience. How do we treat things that we think are under us, are beneath us? I think that to me, the way that science fiction, particularly artificial intelligence, like that whole subject matter, has evolved in terms of like storytelling. I think we've come so far, but I wholly recognize that Blade Runner 1982 really set that kind of storytelling in motion and really told us this is the way that we can tell these kinds of stories and not alert humanity about the dangers of AI, but kind of just like put us on notice and you know what I mean? Like, do you see what I'm getting at?
Well, and I think this is a movie that's like, put yourself in somebody else's shoes. So, put yourself in that person's position, and you're born and you're given life. And then all of a sudden it's like, now a kid's going to go to high school. And in that time you're going to live and die. And it's like, oh, fuck. Like that's a huge thing to hit. The 4 years is all you get. But I think that it does an amazing job with not just spelling things out for you. Like I can see why, like the theatrical cut of this is awful. There's like a voiceover narration that apparently Harrison Ford, I don't know if this is true or not. I've heard he went in there and just did it as shitty as he possibly could because he hated it.
I've heard that as well. Yeah.
And I'll be honest, there's some parts where like the first couple times I watched this, I didn't know what the fuck was going on in some parts. Like I had to Google some stuff. But that's not necessarily like, it doesn't take away anything from the story for me. It's just like, oh, okay, now I kind of get what they're going for. And like you said, I think there are movies that can tell the story like more concisely or maybe on a smaller scale. But I think ultimately it does the maximum with the medium that it's in when it comes to visuals. I can see someone being like, yeah, there's some really goofy, this kind of takes me out of it and yada, yada. But it kind of invented that the future is dirty, dirty future kind of look that I absolutely love. But it's not an absolutely perfect film either. There's definitely some goofy ass parts to it, and there's some so Rachel, Leon, Zora, and Deckard all happen to be in the same like city block at the same. That's fucking convenient as shit. Like there's definitely stuff where like, upon rewatching it, I was like, okay, yeah, I've never really thought about that before, and the story is there and I absolutely do love it. But at the same time, there's been so many stories that have kind of, evolved like from this, and what is AI and what does it mean to be alive and what do we actually call life and yada, yada. And I think that it opens the door for some really, really cool conversations and questions.
And I'm sure that there's been like many things that have been answered in sort of like spin-off media, like comic books and stuff. Like,
oh yeah,
I mean, like one thing I was thinking about was why does it constantly rain in Los Angeles, which is a city that is not really known for rain. But I don't know what's happened in this future, like in terms of just like weather events and stuff like that.
Bombs and shit.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I've been, this movie is definitely one of the reasons why I ever wanted to start a podcast or talk about movies. And there's so much where, there's so much going on right underneath the surface that it's like, man, I really want to, as ugly as this world can be, I do want to dip my toe and walk around in here for a day and just be like, wow, like this is fucking crazy. And the visual part of Ridley Scott will forever like mystify me. Absolutely. Like his movies have definitely fallen off to some degree. I haven't seen a lot of his more recent stuff. Was Napoleon any good? Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw it. Napoleon was it was divisive. I thought it was fine. I thought it was like a clip show version of Napoleon. I know that he's talked about like a 4-hour cut coming to Apple. Apple haven't confirmed anything like that, but even though Napoleon is like 2.5 hours long, it still
Damn.
feels a little like, yeah, it feels a little strange. I hear very early word that Gladiator, the sequel Gladiator, is outstanding. Like
Oh,
really good, but I don't know. It's very early.
yeah. Well, Ridley, it's just so hit and miss. You never really know.
I've so this is why I've said this on the podcast so many times. This is why Ridley to me is one of my least favorite directors, because his lack of consistency is just so like, what the fuck?
Hmm.
I wholly recognize how fantastic this movie is. Obviously, Alien 1979 is just a game changer. Gladiator, I love. American Gangster, I love. It's just but then he has things like Exodus, Gods and Kings. Like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's just like, what the fuck are you doing, Ridley? You know,
Did he do Kingdom of Heaven?
he did do Kingdom of Heaven, of which the director's cut is the better version.
Right.
Um,
I've never seen either of them.
yeah, so like the director's cut is fantastic, but like, I mean, let me really quickly let me run you through like his kind of his filmography, right? And you think about the consistency or lack thereof, right? So he starts his career off 1977 with The Duelists. I haven't seen that. But then his second movie out of the gate is Alien, which is staggering. It's
Whew,
like, holy
man, yeah.
shit. And then Blade Runner 3 years after Alien. It's like, look, that back to back, there might never be a better back to back. Like
Yeah.
that.
That's a good left right.
Right. And then 1985 Legend, starring Tom Cruise. I haven't particularly seen that, but I know that it's a bit of a cult favorite.
Hmm.
It made 1987 Someone to Watch Over Me, 1989 Black Rain, 1991 is also another banger with Delma and Louise.
Oh yeah, fuck!
Yep.
I forgot he did that. I've never seen that either.
Yeah, that's a great movie. I really dig that. 1992 1492 Conquest of Paradise, never seen it. 1996 White Squall, never seen it. 1997 G.I. Jane, I've never seen that.
What?
He did G.I. Jane. Yeah.
Wow.
I knew that.
Okay.
Did you not know that?
No.
Well, I mean, Will Smith definitely knows. Sorry, low hanging fruit, ladies and gentlemen.
Name
out your fucking mouth.
Oh man, you just hear like flesh on flesh
joke.
Oh man.
Yeah, sorry. And then 3 years later, after G.I. Jane, he makes Gladiator in 2000, and then in 2001, he starts doing his double feature sort of things, which is. This is when he starts really working. Like, he's like, I'm going to start churning shit out, right? So 2001, Hannibal, which I think is fine. I don't think it's
not bad.
Incredible. But in the same year, Black Hawk Down is an absolute banger of a movie. Black Hawk Down is incredible. I haven't seen this, but 2003 is Matchstick Men. But I hear it's great.
I know, never seen it.
2005, Kingdom of Heaven. 2006, A Good Year. 2007, American Gangster, like I said, is a banger. 2008, Body of Lies. It might be the weakest Leonardo DiCaprio film. 2010, Robin Hood, which is an absolute travesty. 2012, Prometheus, which I know has its fans, but did not work for me at all.
Me either.
Despite being some of the best trailers I've ever seen in my life ever. Holy shit, dude.
Super divisive.
Yeah. 2013, again, some of the best trailers I've ever seen ever. The Counselor. 2014, Exodus, Gods and Kings. 2015, The Martian, which is really good. I really like The Martian. 2017 Alien Covenant, which is divisive. 2017 All the Money in the World, which is really good, but miscast Mark Wahlberg. That's about the kidnapping of one of the Gettys, which is really good. I really dig that movie. 2021 The Last Duel, which I think is fucking awesome. 2021 House of Gucci, which is okay. 2023 Napoleon, and then obviously 2024 this year Gladiator 2. So again, man, just like his consistency
it's
is
like
just
walking
all
in a
over the place.
minefield.
Right,
You never know what you're
exactly.
gonna hit.
Exactly. But I think in the last like few years, he's definitely done more good than bad. So I mean, like I
Mhm.
said, All the Money in the World, The Last Duel, House of Gucci, I really liked, and Napoleon. I actually land on the I really dig this. So yeah.
Yeah, I need to watch more of his stuff. I've seen maybe 4 or 5 of those movies, but I've always really liked his just seeing like the visuals of his movie or of his movies, and I think that kind of wrapping up my thoughts. I think that visually,
I totally forgot we were in the middle of your thoughts, dude. I'm so sorry. Here I
oh
am
no,
running
you're
through
good.
this guy's like fucking filmography, man.
Yeah, well, and I kind of like doing that sometimes too because I am not that well versed in Ridley Scott, but and I learned definitely. It's like he did GI Jane, like holy shit. Um, but I think there's something really amazing about this movie. I think again visually, I think it is absolutely perfect. There's very little I would dislike or change about the visuals in this movie, but I think that there's definitely some. It's not that it's like bloated, but it definitely takes its fucking time. It
Yeah.
definitely walks through the mall when you're like right behind. Like, okay, come on, dude. Like, goddamn. Like
Yet
there
it's
are
still
moments.
less glacial than Blade Runner 2049. Because I think
Yeah.
Blade Runner 2049 is a lot slower than this.
Oh, actually, I need to before. Yeah, I need to rewatch that again. Uh, but I feel like the story in 2049 is better. I definitely feel like the way that they like the mystery of what is going on in 2049 is way more appealing than is Deckard a replicant.
Oh yeah.
Way more
Oh
appealing.
yeah. Well,
The
what are your
story.
thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on the importance of the question of is Deckard a replicant? Because, like I said, man, I think it's dominated the conversation around this movie, and
Mhm.
I don't think that that's the question that we should be asking.
I it's one of those things that it doesn't take anything away from the movie for me, but it doesn't really add anything either.
Right.
It does add a little bit of fun conversation. I've heard the crazy shit about this movie. Uh, Edward James Olmos's character. I saw I don't know where I read this years ago, but there's I guess like a film theory or like a fan theory that guy is that basically Deckard is a replicant with that guy's memories. And that's why that guy makes the little unicorn, and then Deckard starts seeing them, and it's like, how does he know that he? And it's like, again, not something that I subscribe to personally, but I love reading that stuff. I love seeing people's like takes on it, and like
Oh yeah.
if I were Ridley Scott and just seeing like, man, people watch my movie and like get into it that much and have all these different kind of like like Mad Max. Everybody says that Tom Hardy is the mullet kid from Road Warrior, and does that add anything? No, but does it take anything away? Maybe a little bit.
Head canon, right? Like you kind
Right.
of yeah.
Right. And I love that. I love seeing those kind of like stories just chasing it's like Man from Earth to me. It's like just chasing your tail around the pole, just telling stories and just having fun. Yeah. And that's why I actually like some fan theories, but some of them are fucking ridiculous. You look like you're about to say something. Spit it out. What is it?
Oh, I really need to take a piss.
Bathroom break over. I think that I think that one of the things I love about this movie, obviously I've talked about the visuals. I love the existential storyline to it of what really is life, and if something is experiencing life on all the same levels that you are, how is it not something that's alive? The fact that they call, like, even Deckard calls it, he's like, how can it not know what it is? And I'm like, oh man, that feels wrong. It's wrong. Like I hate that.
And
And
something else I love is just like how would you act or what would you want and what would you think about when you know the date of your death? Like
yeah.
that
Hmm.
is so existential and so terrifying, but so
Yeah.
well thought out in this movie, I thought.
Yeah, and the fact that they are like infants running around in these giants' bodies, that they're gods among men and they have the brains of like children, basically. But all in all, I think that it poses a lot of really interesting questions, and it does kind of have some of its own answers. But I think that it leaves a lot up to interpretation as well. No, I don't really think Deckard being a replicant really I don't know if it even really makes sense with the story. It just seems like a kind of like right at the end of the movie, it's kind of
Mhm.
like this is kind of weird. Like what was the point of like, so you have a honey badger loose in the house, so you let you have 5 honey badgers, so you let another honey badger loose. Like, what are you going to do? You still have to go catch another honey badger. Like, what the fuck
Right.
is wrong with you? Yeah, so it just seems kind of silly. I think even Harrison Ford said he doesn't agree with that, and I think basically 2049 just put that whole thing to rest. Anyways, I don't think he's. I think it's. I don't know if they ever say that he's human in 2049, but it's like, I mean, he's in the goddamn movie. Like he's on the cover. He's an old man. Like there's no way he's a replicant. He would
I
have. He
can't
would have died
remember.
after.
I think they leave it ambiguous still. I can't
Oh, okay.
remember the
If there's
outcome of
that
that.
much of a uproar about it and conversation, I can see them doing that. I mean, like, we're not even going to touch this thing with a fucking 10-foot stick. But I love this movie. It's very important to me. There was a time where I had a 12 gigabyte phone, and 4 gigs of that was this movie downloaded to watch at any time.
That's great.
I absolutely loved it, and I
The
still
way
love
Ridley
it.
Scott intended.
Yeah, yeah, watching it on my phone in between breaks at the restaurant. I think that I love the phrase, I think, or it might be a page called "Every Frame a Painting," and it's just these absolutely like beautiful visuals for movies. And to me, that's what this movie feels like. Is it's so like it's one of those things where every shot to me is just so like absolutely gorgeous, but like I never get desensitized to it, and it's like I never take it for granted. And every time I watch this, I'm just like, man, I love the use of shadows. I love just like when Roy Batty goes to see the eye guy, and it's like you have these like greens and really really dark blues, but then like the shadows on the face, it looks like it looks like T2 in the cryo, with the big liquid nitrogen and shit. But I think I've rambled on enough about the beginning of this. I definitely want to get into it more as we go along. I think we can just jump right in. And again, we're not going to be taking a scalpel to this thing and dissecting every little nuance and stuff. Like there's a lot of this movie that is the movie just kind of like like breathing, and I love that. This movie definitely has like a lot. It takes a lot of like time up, but I don't mind that. I definitely still enjoy it.
There are
But what do you say? Do you have
also
anything? Okay,
no,
go ahead.
oh no, I don't have much more to add. I was just gonna say there are also other podcasts who have done, or probably will do, a better job than we will be doing. I know Dean over at LSJ Media has covered this movie. He loves this movie. So
Oh yeah,
like,
I think that was like their first episode, maybe one of.
yeah, I don't know if they've revisited it. I think they might have, but um, yeah, I mean, like Dean's analysis is pretty top
Oh
notch.
yeah, their 2049 episode's great. I love that. Um, but yeah, we'll just start it right up here at the top. Los Angeles 2019. Uh, again, just goddamn, it's the hashtag cinema porn. Just talk about a fucking opening shot, and like I love the fire in the eye, just barely going to like
Going
outside the.
around, yeah.
Oh man, I love
It's
it.
gorgeous. I also really, really love this title sequence, like the sort of opening credits with the evangelists coming in, and
Oh yeah.
dude, the not only the it sounds like strings kind of thing, but like that fucking booming drum. Holy shit, that sounds
Mm-hmm.
awesome, dude. Like when we get the ugh, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, I'll Uh, early in the 21st century, the Tyrell Corporation advanced robotic revolution into the Nexus phase of being virtually identical to a human, known as a replicant. The Nexus 6 replicants were superior in strength and agility, and at least equal in intelligence to the genetic engineers who created them. Replicants were used off-world as slave labor in the hazardous exploration and colonization of other planets. After a bloody mutiny by Nexus 6 combat team in an off-world colony, replicants were declared illegal on Earth under penalty of death. Special police squads, Blade Runner units, had orders to shoot to kill upon detection any trespassing replicant. This was not called execution, it was called retirement. And like that's again, so right off the bat, it's not an execution. An execution is what happens to a person, and it's like that. Just God, that blows my that just absolutely blows my mind. It's like, how can you put it that way?
Using vernacular to minimalize your like actions, it's so telling already. Like,
right, minimizing that and just being absolutely it's like scrapping a car, you know. It's like, oh no, we're just putting it out to pasture. Yeah, it's like, no, you're killing something. Like that's not. Anyways, I think that these kind of like opening shots obviously set like the scale of this movie, which is something we haven't really talked about. I love the absolute gigantic scale of this thing, where you do get these like great little moments of being on the city and visually seeing everything, but then you have these huge like overhead shots of just seeing this absolutely massive world that just looks like a circuit board lit up. I love all of this right at the beginning.
It looks fantastic, man. Like this opening scene, you're 100% right. Like underscored with like the evangelist like music is so arresting.
Mm-hmm.
But I love, like, you know, that this is the first time we see Tyrell Corp, and the idea that, you know, they're just so elevated. Like, you know, if we talk about like status, and if we talk about like where they think they are in the world, like we know that the replicants essentially changed the world and changed how humans approach tasks. So, like, the fact that they have all this money to literally elevate themselves over the city.
Mm-hmm.
Even when we see, like, what's his first name? Tyrell. What's Tyrell's first name?
Eldon.
Yeah, when we first see Elton, with
I think it's Eldon.
Eldon, not Elton John.
Yeah, I think it's Eldon. I might be wrong.
I'm a rocker man. But yeah,
getting my skull crushed in my home.
When we first see him with Rachel in that scene, it feels like he's an emperor in ancient Egypt. Oh, sorry, a pharaoh in ancient Egypt.
Yeah, like the Pope.
Right, exactly, and it's just so like telling of like what this corporation thinks of themselves. It's great.
It's literally stuff. It's like the building is almost like a pyramid.
Yeah,
you know, and it's like you
can almost see the hieroglyphs. Like, it's so good.
Right. I've got a shirt somewhere. It's a 3/4 length like baseball tee, and it has an owl on the front of it, and it says Tyrell Corp on the back, more human than human.
Oh, that's cool.
And I gotta find that shirt. I don't know where it is.
That's cool. It's a little gay, but it's cool. I've been watching much It's Always Sunny that like my personality over the last few months has been rubbing off on like It's Always Sunny, because I've been watching the show and in the podcast, and yeah, it's so good.
I've been using the dentist system and accumulating mass.
You've been doing an ocular pat down.
Yeah, I've been sniffing glue and eating cat food, but the the movie really starts off with our interrogation and our entry into like what will become known as like the void comp test, which is again, it's like the movie is not like. The most you're going to get out of the movie directly is the title card. That's all you're going to get. And at no point does it really go, the void conf is a test used to, you know, it never like does any of that kind of exposition. And I like that, because there's something natural about this machine where it's like, that just feels like a lie detector. Like it's breathing, and it's got this, it's got that thing on your eye like the whole time.
But I think this also really highlights the movie's like fascination with eyes. I mean, obviously our first shot is an eye. You know, like how we find out who is telling the truth is through the eye. Even like when we're talking to when Roy Batty goes to see the eye guy, like the movie is obsessed with eyes. And like in my opinion, I think there's a reason for that, right? Like, it's, you know, you hear the phrase, you know, the eye is the window to the soul, and it's just so telling. Like the fact that they use this primarily to determine who is a replicant or not, and the fact that I don't know, like, do they do the void contest in 2049? Is someone able to trick it? I can't remember.
I don't know. I think what they do with K is the within cells interlinked.
That's right. That's
I
right.
think
Yeah.
that's what it is, but I might be
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get the world building in this of just like the tension as well as like between the two actors. He was like, I saw one in a book once, and you hear the and the machine and the guy doing the interrogation, Holden kind of like looks up at him in this very weird way that I love, and you can just feel the quite frankly the sexual tension in the room. I was waiting for him to clap cheeks with this man, but
Well, did they
unfortunately
model Leon after like a garbage man or some shit? Like he just looks like a
this dude, he's
you know?
he's in a bunch of movies. Like he was in a shit ton of them, but I can't recall like a lot of them that he was in. But he's been in peppered throughout like my childhood in movies that I've seen. But the test, like the questions that they're throwing at him of like the turtle being turned upside down, and yeah, him absolutely like struggling with it. I love, and when he shoots him, like, do you ever look at the gun that he's holding? It's like,
No.
dude, it's like a 4-barreled gun. It's like 2 barrels on. It's like a double barrel. If you look at it, it's dope looking. And I was like, dude, you shot that guy at point blank with that? And I was like, Jesus Christ, dude.
It's like the gun they use at the end of Bad Boys. Yeah,
Oh, dude, I can't remember.
literally,
I haven't seen it.
it's literally the same one. They use it at the end of Bad Boys to kill the bad guy. And I think it's outdated. I think it's like outlawed now. Like you can't buy it anymore. And, yeah.
What does that thing pack? It's like 20 gauge or like 10 gauge. Like
yeah, it's basically a shotgun packed into a pistol. You know.
Yeah, I went to Keno Der Toten and pack a bunch of this thing myself. But we see Holden, basically get the lead from Leon once he fails the void comp test. We kind of after that we get to finally meet our hero in the form of Harrison Ford, the man, the myth, the legend.
Handsome, so handsome, dude.
He is just like, and at the time too, what I hate is like, man, the fact that they really didn't get around to doing like a proper Captain America movie when he was in, the 20s and 30s. So I think he would be an absolutely killer Captain America. Like, I think he kind of was Captain America to a lot of like, I think growing up, he's Han Solo, but then like, he's this heartthrob. Like that dude had everybody like watching his movies and stuff. Because I don't know of a lot of actors that can pull off like something that's super sci-fi like Star Wars, but then be in The Fugitive, and then turn around, then I'll do Blade Runner, but then I'll do like What Lies Beneath, and it's like holy shit, like he just a really really versatile career. I think
Air Force One, baby.
Like, yeah, Air Force, and I know he did a lot of those. Like he was, is he Jack Reacher in that thing? He's in some Tom Clancy.
Oh, he's Jack Ryan. He's Jack Ryan twice in
yes,
Clear and Present Danger, and fuck, I'm forgetting the other one. Yeah. Oh
yeah, me too. I can't remember. Patriot Games? Is that what it is?
Patriot Games. Yep, that's the one.
Okay. Yep. Anyways, I think that he absolutely, as Deckard, I really enjoy for the most part. Like there's nothing really I have to like complain about like his performance or anything, like nothing to nitpick. But I love he's kind of got this like at first this very cynical, jaded kind of feel, but as the movie goes on, you definitely sense him starting to like open up to the ideas of these aren't just like dogs that I'm putting down. Like these are these are these things are having a life. These replicants, like how can you it's a bit of like Prometheus and Zeus, like stealing, or was that Prometheus that stole fire from and gave it to man?
No, stole fire from the gods and gave it to man. Yeah.
I thought, never mind. Yeah, I'm thinking of somebody else, but yeah, like
No, I think you're.
bring.
I think you're right. Like that reading, because now that you tell me about it, I think I'm thinking back to like year 11 English, and the idea of Prometheus was brought up, but I can't remember if it was
Oh, that's
brought up.
hilarious.
I can't remember if it was in the context of this or no. We were talking about Frankenstein. No, we were talking about Frankenstein. That was a different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there's a lot of I love the X-Files episode. It's a Frankenstein episode called The Modern Prometheus. It's a
Mm.
great episode. It's unlike anything else in that show. But anyways, I love the setup here of just how crowded, how dirty, this place is, and the off-world colonies things. Everything around you is saying basically to consume or get the fuck out. It's like basically telling you to get off of the planet, but also like, oh, stay and have a Coke and get some noodle, and it's just super overcrowded. Like the closest kind of feeling I get to a city like this in a movie is something like Judge Dredd with Mega City 1. Like it feels like that huge, like cramped up, like kind of feeling.
Yeah, there were a bunch of movies that were inspired by the aesthetic of this that followed, and just didn't really kind of like nail this aesthetic. But I have a question for you. What is your take on the Asian culture and the Asian influence? Because you have to remember that it is LA, and they're not always in like Chinatown, right? So like it's interesting because there's so much Asian influence. Sorry.
Hmm.
Did you notice that? Like, there's a lot of Asian actors. There's a lot of like
Yes,
Asian sort of like writing.
I know. I only noticed that because I'm a racist.
I am also a racist too, and I don't like Asians. So
no, yeah, me either. Oh yeah, no, but I think that I think that there's even one part, because I was just reading up about the movie and stuff, and there was a sign in Chinese somewhere that says basically like China's awesome, fuck America, and there's like definitely like an influence of that. And I think James Wong is the actor who plays like the eye. He's in like, dude, he's
James
in so
Hong.
much shit.
Yeah,
James Hong. Thank you.
He's I think currently one of the most credited actors in history.
Yeah. Oh God, I think he's in
Everything Everywhere All at Once. Yeah.
Yes. Balls of Fury, like Seinfeld. Yeah. He's in so much shit. But anyways, I love the setup of this world that we get, and just right away the lack of communication with people around him. 4, like he's still trying to like communicate with this world, and it's just not working. But he gets crazy part, I don't even know what to call Edward James Olmos' character, because I don't even think they say his fucking name in the movie.
Oh, they do. It's Gaff, Officer Gaff.
Officer Gaff, thank you.
Yeah.
But Officer,
I kind of wonder. Sorry, I'm just thinking more about the Asian influence. This coming out in 1982.
Origami.
Yeah, Origami. I mean, like, I know that like there's kind of like a hodgepodge. I mean, Origami is obviously not this, but I know that there was a lot of thinking about the Vietnam, like post-Vietnam at this point, and I don't know what influence that has on this, but yeah, I don't know. I'm still curious. But if there's any listeners out there who knows more about this, let me know, because I was curious as to why it's so heavy.
Well, I wonder if part of it is also because in like 1982, you're seeing the rise of like a lot of stuff is slowly not being built in America anymore, and it's being stuff's being. How often do you pick something up and it says made in China, made in Hong Kong, made in
and Japan is like technologically advanced as well.
Yes, and like everything coming out at the time. Toyotas and what are they make keyboards and guitars and stuff as well. Yamaha, like there's so much stuff coming out from that part of the world that especially in America, I'm sure probably.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nexus 6 brought to you by Yamaha.
Yeah,
sponsored by Toyota.
He grabs the narrator's throat and like crushes his windpipe. But basically he gets a visit from Gaff. They say Detective Bryant Brian or Bryant, I can't remember. And basically it's not a request, it's a a statement. Get your ass, come talk to me. We find out that Deckard used to be a Blade Runner, and he says, hey, I need the old Blade Runner. I need the best. I got to have the number one guy to hunt these people down. Basically, that's where we get the lowdown of, I think he says there's like 5 or 6 actually, and then one of them got fried. Like one of them dies prior to the story of like the replicants. I think there's one that he kind of mentions that gets cooked in a fence or something like that.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, there is I might have solved the the reason why there's such a Asian influence on this.
Dude, let it
sorry,
go.
I know they're invading us, our media. Like, no. But actually, this was co-produced by the Shaw Brothers. Have you heard of the Shaw Brothers? So Shaw Brothers Limited was the largest film production company in Hong Kong. And operated from 1925 to 2011. I had heard of them before because I know Quentin Tarantino is a big fan of these guys, these 3 brothers.
Okay.
And he takes a lot of their influence from them.
That's cool. I'll have to look into some of those movies. I'm not going to. But the no,
you're racist.
And again, lays it out for him. I've got to have the best. He says, why don't you ask Holden? He goes, well, Holden's breathing okay as long as nobody moves him or switches or turns any switches or whatever he says. And he gives him the breakdown on all the different replicants and their different models. And the one thing I do think is interesting is that there's only one that has 2. It's Roy Batty, and everybody else is just Pris, Zora, Leon. And I was like, why does this motherfucker get 2 names?
Because it's
like,
later.
I would. See, I would, and sometimes I do that. Not that takes me out of the movie, but I kind of do wish he was just Roy. Like that was it. Like that to me was like not a big. It's not even really worth mentioning, but it's just something I always wish. Like, let me just take an eraser real quick, just scratch out Batty. And he gives him the lowdown on, basically the replicants that have escaped. He gave him a 4-year lifespan. They're giving him memories, so it would kind of like help keep them calm and basically not have them freak out, but they're putting real people's memories inside of them. 4-year lifespan. And Deckard asks, why are they coming back to Earth? And he basically says, well, that's what you're here for. That's why you're here to find out. And he says they've got a Nexus 6 at the Tyrell Corporation for him to check out. And this is where we meet Rachel.
Damn right he's going to check that shit out.
Well, and again, absolutely like visually stunning, the whole way there. And then once we get there, it's like, Jesus Christ, like the owl and like the golden pyramid, like kind of you feel like this isn't a warm room with like sand. I don't know what it is. It's just this very bright. And the shot, I mean, good God, dude, the shot of Rachel walking up is like, that is such an iconic fucking shot of her. And like, I mean, they even well, I don't want to spoil 2049 in case anybody hasn't seen it. I mean, I know it's been years, but still, it's that good of a movie. I don't really want to ruin it if you haven't seen it. But the shot of Rachel like coming up is just so good. And Sean Young, good Lord, man. And it sucks, she had such a kind of odd career, in life, to put it. I guess that's the most political way I can put that, because it's like, I think she's had some mental health issues and stuff. And but God, absolutely killer in this. And then she's a goddamn knockout. I've always had. I've actually got a bunch of pops around the house. I have like young Deckard, old Deckard, Rachel. Like I have a few of them. The Funko Pops from this movie.
I always forget like how kind of prolific she was. I mean, obviously she was in this, but she was in like David Lynch's Dune. She was in Wall Street. Like Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. I know it's not in the same caliber, but like like that was.
Still a massive movie though.
Yeah.
Well, she was supposed to be fucking Catwoman, and then
that all
fell apart. Oh,
didn't she like really like she obsessively wanted that role, and I think she was like she started filming or something, and I can't remember. There was a big
She
story
was
about
she was training horseback riding for the movie,
that. That's
fell off and
right.
broke her collarbone, and
Yes,
then the
yes, yes,
movie
yes.
cut her. And I'm like, yeah, that's actually like, I got to be honest, her uh actions are questionable at best. What happened after that, where she like showed up on set
Mhm.
in a Catwoman costume and then like looked for Tim Burton as he hid. As crazy as, crazy as you want to call that, at the same time, like, that I do absolutely feel for her, where it's like, you broke your arm training for the Olympics, and the Olympics was like, yeah, sorry man, we gotta yeah, we can't wait for you. It's like, that's fucked up, man. Like, that's really fucked up. It's like, I understand, that's always kind of pissed me off a little bit about that story. I'm like, poor Sean Young. um but we're introduced to Rachel. I love right away the dynamic between her and Deckard, and the fact that it's never, I feel like it's perfect, like rhythmic pong. It's like doom doom. They keep sending it like back and forth, and I love the not really tension between them, but I don't know what you would really call it, because at first it doesn't feel like this kind of like not sexual tension, but there's definitely something where it's like they notice each other right away. And I think that, I mean, how could you not with him or her? It's like, good lord, man, it's two absolutely like gorgeous people. um and
I just
we
I also
oh,
wanted to bring up the owl and like this just around wildlife in general and the fact that like animals have either ceased to exist or are very rare and
yeah.
they're very expensive if they're real. Um like just the idea of like artificial life taking hold, like like the fact that, you've got this owl here and then you've got what's the snake later, right?
Yeah, and then oh man, yeah, no, there's definitely, well, there's a lot of like animal stuff in this, where they talk about the turtle, and then
Mhm.
she has a snake that, like, Roy Batty howls like a wolf at points, and there's a lot of like animal stuff in this movie, where like the owl has become a very big like symbol of this movie. That owl is on a lot of like t-shirts and merchandise and stuff, and I do think that's from the book as well. Have you ever read the book? You ever
I've
read
never
of
read the book. No,
Androids?
no.
It's okay. I mean, I didn't I definitely prefer the movie to the story, but I like a lot of like Philip K. Dick's like short stories. He wrote some pretty interesting stuff. But we get the introduction of Eldon Tyrell, which, again, this guy, he's the bartender from The Shining. I cannot remember his
Mhm.
name. I think it's M. Emmett Walsh or something. Uh, but his performance, like, in this is outstanding. He's one of my favorite parts of this movie. I love the way that he talks and his cadence, and you get this like Howard. Oh, it's Howard Hughes, like the crazy like billionaire who
Yeah.
started pissing in jars.
Yep.
I almost said Howard Hawks. Howard Hughes, or like Mr. House from Fallout New Vegas, or the Waz from Wizard of Oz. Like, you get this very big kind of feeling about this guy, that, and when they're administering like the void comp and stuff, just his presence is always kind of lingering. But not just his presence, like his performance. I absolutely love. One of my favorite lines from the movie is where he meets Roy Batty, and he's like, "The candle that burns twice as bright lasts half as long, and you have burned so very, very brightly, Roy." And I love his performance. It's one of my favorite parts of this movie, even though he's barely in it. I like. What does he say? He's like, "Milk and cookies kept you up, Sebastian," and he's like sitting there playing with the chessboard. Like, he's great. I love this guy. But the fact that you also get this incredible feeling of him from like the wonder of everything, is he's like, there's so much work to do, like there's so much stuff that this guy probably wants to get done in his in his lifetime. And I feel like you kind of get the same feeling for Jared Leto and 2049, uh but we get the void comp test. Is this a test to figure out if I'm a human or a lesbian, Mr. Deckard? I love that. That's great. And she fails. Rachel fails the void comp test, which I was super like, Oh, I was a little bit taken aback by it when I first saw it, because you assume that he says like, "Hey, I want to see a negative before, we put it on an actual replicant." And I was it did honestly super surprise me that she was a replicant the first time that I saw this. Uh, but he says it's usually what, I think it's like 20 or 30 questions cross reference, and she went through 100.
100.
You're like, whew, that's crazy. And they say she doesn't know what she is. Basically, she's an experiment. They're implementing these memories of of somebody else's life, and in this case, it's actually Tyrell's niece, I think. Is what her memories are from. But they created an illusion or a pillow just to kind of soften the blow of life. Honestly, which I think is really, really, really interesting, especially for 1982. That's a crazy concept, man. Like that's kind of a crazy concept now, of giving AI fake memory so they'll relate to humanity maybe a little bit more, and kind of blend in a little bit more, is nuts, absolutely nuts. What did you think about this this whole scene and finding out she was a replicant and stuff?
See, like this was something that was kind of I knew the whole time because it was told to us by our teacher.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, like you know what, man? They do that thing with the eye, like how you see the owl, and like you can kind of see in its pupils like that sort of discoloration. I know
Yeah, that orange
it's
hue kind of.
yeah, and I don't know if it's like a reflection, but like there are points where it's like very clearly like, holy shit, that looks insane. And as Rachel is answering the questions, you can see the same thing in her people as well. Um, and it's just like, I thought it was obvious that she's a replicant. it- even before like the void comp, like even before he gets the results of the void comp test. So I don't know. I just thought I always assumed that Rachel was a replicant, but maybe that was something that I knew just having absorbed this movie through osmosis, having before seen it as well.
Hmm. No, that I because I was just so taken aback. I think visually at the time that my guard was down, and I was just like, "Holy shit!" I was like, "Yeah, I wonder when the replicant." And I was like, "Oh no, she is the fucking replicant." Um, after the void comp test scene, though, we go with Deckard and Gaff as they go to check out the hotel that Leon was staying at. Uh, Again, this was one of those things when I first saw it, I didn't really know. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I was just not
Right.
paying attention so much to because they even say like, oh, they say the address in the car and then they take off. And I was like, nope, didn't
Right.
catch that at
That's
all.
something
Like
that was lost on me as well. Yeah.
that shit blew right past me. We find the scales in the bathtub, which will lead us later on to Zora, and we get another one of the origami figures from Gaff. This time, it's just a little statue of a man. I laugh every time because it looks like he has a little penis, which it just makes me laugh. It's because I'm a child. We
Deckard
find
also finds the photos as well, right?
Yes, Leon's photos, which I find interesting. Of like, I don't know what's more interesting. Are they Leon's that he took, like he actually got at a camera, or I know at least some of them are, but like, are they just photos that he found and he's like, holy shit, these are what people are like? Like, I don't know. Either one of those is kind of interesting to me. But we get them ultimately like finding the scales, finding the pictures. We find out that Leon tried to go back for the pictures. Fucking idiot. Like, I don't know. It just makes me laugh where he's like, did you get your precious photos? Like, and this, the first time I think we see, Leon or Roy Batty in the flesh, which we got to talk about Rutger Hauer.
Dude, rest in peace, man. What a fucking, what a guy. What a powerhouse.
This might star Harrison Ford, but this is Rutger Hauer's movie. Like
I would agree with that assessment. Yeah,
it's and and nothing. Obviously, no offense to Harrison Ford, he does an absolutely great job. But this monologue is like one of the best monologues in film. Like it's small, it's very, very small, but visually and just his performance in the context of the movie is just gut wrenching. But and this guy's murdered dozens of people by the end of this movie, and it just breaks your heart, to see him go. And I think his performance as Roy Batty is just incredible. It's one of my favorite performances in really all of sci-fi, because he does such a great job of not only being a villain but then also being sympathetic at the same time. And he's he's got that tall fucking Drago Rocky IV kind of feel to him. You're like, oh, this guy could crush me. Like he could probably break your fucking neck. What did you think about Rutger Hauer in this?
Yeah, man, I thought it was awesome. Like, he totally embodies this. He's so hard to read, but at the same time, really easy to read. Like, you know that he's given this like short lifespan, so he really like kind of plays this. He's constantly thinking about death, right? He's constantly thinking about like what the meaning of his life is, or why he exists, and why his body's like shutting down on him. But like he also is sad that like all of his memories of I've seen sea beams like off 10 houses a gay. Like he's seen like all of these things, and now they're just going to stop existing because he's going to stop existing. And whether he wants to memorialize those things, whether he wants to keep those things going in some other fashion, like let's say in a book or other like a media, like he wants to create things, he wants to leave things behind, and he can't physically do that. And when he meets his maker, when he meets Eldon Tyrell, it's anger. Like it's like there's this like you did this to me, you created my life, you gave me these memories, but you also gave me this sadness. You also gave me the fact that I have to say goodbye to those things. He's just so good. He's absolutely incredible. And he wears all of that behind his eyes. Again, the fascination with the eyes. He brings a whole nother dimension to this role, which could have been so two-dimensional, but he makes it so three-dimensional that you just can't help but fall in love with this guy.
And yeah, absolutely. And I think they do a really, really great job of making him sympathetic. He's like angelic, he's perfect looking, just this 6'6", like bright blue eyes and like white blondish hair. He's like this like perfect looking juggernaut. And same thing for Daryl Hannah as well as Pris, just absolutely gorgeous blonde hair, blue eyed, like angelic.
Harley Quinn-esque.
Oh, very, yeah. That would have been a great role. And again, we cover all this, and we meet Leon and Roy Batty, and they're on the way to see the eye doctor, not the optometrist, but James Hong, not Wong.
I know they all look the same and sound the same to you, Colin. But
I was waiting for that.
I
was waiting for that to come out. We get basically them kind of I like that it's a bit of like a detective thing for the replicants as well, of like chaining to this person to get to that person. Like I like that. It's not as detective-y as like Deckard's kind of story, but I like their story is super interesting as well. And you really do want to see them like be able to survive and live longer, but ultimately it's just not in the cards. They ask him where to find more information, incept dates, morphology, longevity, whatever. And he says JF Sebastian, and rats JF out pretty quickly.
Dude, he folds. He folds like a fucking paper castle, dude. Like, holy shit.
I mean, and I can't blame him. Like, these two, like this guy just stuck his arm in liquid nitrogen, and he's like, it smells weird. Like, oh fuck,
yeah.
Like, these guys are gonna fucking kill me.
Well, that's another thing, right? Like, he's kind of like taking off his like suit jacket thing, so he's like freezing. And they're obviously
it's
the
like
replicants.
-40.
Yeah, the replicants can't feel that kind of like experience.
Yeah. And where would we find this JF Sebastian? That's such a great delivery. Um, we see Deckard coming back to his apartment, and he gets the shit scared out of him. He almost blows off Rachel's head in an elevator, which would be fucking hilarious. I'd like to just turn around and say, bang, and shoots her with that double barrel, and she just explodes in the fucking elevator.
It's the fucking scene from like Threat Level Midnight, and it's just Toby's head exploding.
Yeah. Man, I shot Rachel in the face. Why the fuck did you do that?
Yeah. And sorry, I just got your reference from fucking Pulp Fiction.
She scares the shit out of Deckard, and she comes up to his apartment. And she says, "Look, here's a picture of me and my mother. I'm not a replicant. I don't know why he told you that stuff." And Deckard, man, is fucking brutal, to be 100% honest. Like, it's not like, hey, listen, I'm going to say some stuff that blah, blah, blah. He's just like, hey, yeah, you remember that shit? Well, I do too, because it's not fucking real. You know, it's fucking brutal, man.
So this is the scene that I most vividly remember our English teacher pausing and like telling us all about composition and shadow and use of lighting. So like, obviously, like the Venetian blinds when he sits down and he's got like the stripes kind of like across his face. So it's like it's ambiguous as to where his loyalty lies and like where his mindset is, like, you know, like his, like, because half of his face is draped in light and half of his face is draped in darkness. And you've also got Rachel, who is pretty much like also half and half as well. But yeah, like this is the scene that I really remember my English teacher obsessed with.
Oh yeah. Well, and I basically, he just lays it straight out for her, and the second he sees the fact that he's like, okay, bad joke. Like, he immediately tries to play it off like, dude, you just told someone like your whole existence is a lie and you're gonna die in like 3 years, and you're like, no,
JK.
I was just fucking with you though, man.
JK.
Like, I was just kidding. It's just a prank, bro. It's a prank, bro. He tries to apologize and kind of make it up to her, and offers her a drink, and she basically fucking bails on him. And I love there is like even like a David Lynchian kind of, because I know she's in like, I think we just talked about her being in Dune and stuff, but I think her, but then also there's a lot of like texture and stuff that reminds me of Dune in this movie.
Yeah, 100%, dude.
Especially Deckard's apartment, that like stone and like the different kind of like almost like hieroglyphs and stuff along his walls.
Yeah, it is like stone looking, but it's all so artificial looking too, right? Like it's all so like man-made and like contoured.
Modern.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically Rachel bails on him, rightfully so, and she tosses the picture behind and leaves it. Great shot of Deckard out on the balcony, one of my favorite shots of the movie. Absolutely love that. Was one of the first like big shots I ever saw of this movie, and I remember seeing like a picture of this. I think I saw like an article about it or something, and I was like, man, that looks like Fifth Element. I was like, I'll probably have to check that out, and thought I was gonna get something like the Fifth Element, and I was like, oh no, like this is something. This is huge. As he kind of drinks his drink and looks over the city, we see and are introduced to Pris, played by Daryl Hannah. I think that the crazy part is, as much as I like want to like her character, like she's one of the most like devious, where it's like, dude, you got into that guy's house like knowing you were just probably knowing that he was just gonna die in the end of this, you know, and like takes advantage of this dude. And I'm like, that is fucked up, man. Like that is really awful. Like if there's a victim in this movie, it's JF Sebastian. Like,
yeah. Him and his fucking terrible skin fucking condition.
Yeah, bad enough this kid's, he's going to live to see 34, but that's bad enough.
Can someone
like, no, we're going to snatch what?
Get the guy some fucking moisturizer or some shit, dude. Like,
well, yeah, he looks like Clayface in animated series when he can't hold the fucking, he can't hold the image. I think this is William Sanderson. He's been in a bunch of stuff. He's in also another really good X-Files episode, but he plays J.F. Sebastian. We get Pris kind of scaring the shit out of him, and just so ominous. Like the second, like they have this conversation, and he's like, I've got food. You can come up here and hang out with me. And the second he looks away from her, they're both smiling, and she just drops. Like it's like it's all an act, and that is fucking gut wrenching. Apparently Daryl Hannah really fucked up her arm when she went through that thing. I think it actually like banged her up pretty bad when she runs from him. She puts her arm through like a glass window or something. And I don't think she broke character or anything, because the camera, I don't think the scene cuts for like a good while there. But she befriends J.F. Sebastian, and basically he says he lives here all alone. I don't have any friends. I make them. He sounds like a King of the Hill character.
I love, as we're going up the elevator to his kind of like abode, and you kind of like get that really quick shot or like silhouette of the mannequins, and
yes.
Man, like the mannequins, you can't help but think that the mannequins are basically the replicants without just consciousness. Like, like that's basically these fucking guys. And like even later when Pris is kind of like hiding in like she's basically a mannequin.
Right, yeah. She's 100. There's not a whole lot of difference between her and the stuff that J.F. Sebastian makes.
Yeah.
And I've
he
never...
fucks these things, by the way. He 100%.
Oh yeah.
Dude, like, come on, man.
Yeah, they come in and they see her with him, and they're like, "Oh, thank God! Well, we'll have a night off."
Dude, like one of them is like
run away.
One of them's at like perfect like dick sucking height. Like,
yeah,
come on.
When he keeps walking into walls because he's blind from all the shots in his eyes. Like
he's like showing Pris around, and he's like, "Yeah, that one right there. That one's perfectly attuned to my measurements, like right at pelvis height."
Yeah, like don't touch my Pop-Tarts and don't fuck my dolls.
He grabs one of the dolls and is like, "See, there's even like a cum fucking container here, like cum receptacle."
I was gonna say it'd be hilarious if she started eating the dolls and fucking the Pop-Tarts, like burst up on you.
Oh, shit! I'm glad we're back. I'm glad we are back.
Yeah. But yeah, we see them kind of getting settled in. We get Deckard with sitting at the piano with visions of the unicorn, and we get the infamous enhance.
Fucking
like,
hell,
holy
man.
shit,
this goes on for 10 years. Like, this is half the movie's runtime.
It's a bit long.
It's so long, dude. I remember watching this in the 10th grade, and I'm like, are we it's about to hit recess, dude. The bell's about to fucking ring, man. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
I'm about to graduate.
But also, you know what? This was some of that shit that we were doing in 1982, where it's like, oh, we really thought it was going to be practically better for us to use voice commands rather than actually just point and click shit. Like, you know how impractical it is to tell like Siri to enhance shit like that when you can just click and drag to enhance, like how much quicker it would be.
Yeah, that the fucking microphone breaks and then you're not able to use it anymore. And it's like, just point and click.
And now I have to fucking wait for this Zoom animation. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, and it's crazy because like the first time I saw this, I remember being like, I have no idea what's going on. Absolutely not. It looks like he's exploring a picture, which I didn't, I was like, what the fuck? And then eventually I just read about it. I was like, what exactly is going on? And he's basically in the picture, like bouncing off of a mirror, looking into a room. And I'm like, that is fucking insane. Like, that's crazy. It's a crazy concept, but you're right. It's definitely a bit too like, okay, man, come on. He sees the woman in the photograph with the snake tattoo on her face, and that's going to be our main or whatever,
Zora.
Whatever our main. Yeah, Zora. Thank you. Almost said Zelda.
That's Robin Williams' daughter.
Oh yeah, I forgot he was a huge gamer. Deckard takes the scales to basically to somebody who, I think these are people who make animals, and the scale actually has like a serial number, and I'm pretty sure, I think if I remember correctly, like what I think the image that they're looking at is just a zoomed in picture of a marijuana nug. Like
Oh,
I believe so, because it's like it's definitely there's definitely one of these things in there where it's just it's a weed nug when they're looking at it under the microscope, and I was like, that's fucking hilarious. Like it's just like a super close up picture. I might be wrong on if it's exactly at
oh,
this
wait,
point,
you're
but there's
you're
something.
talking about like you just like how they actually filmed it? Is that what you're?
Yeah, I think the image itself is just
Oh,
a
okay.
super zoomed in piece of like
That's funny.
cannabis, like a weed nug.
Ridley Scott's over here
And
being like, "Well, what I wanted was a piece of marijuana and
yeah,
just kind of like zoom in, you know?
yeah. And what if the marijuana created
Yeah,
us? And you're
and
like, okay, yeah,
and the
stop it.
Queen is gonna knight me next week while I'm fucking high." I do a
I mean,
terrible
high as
British
shit.
accent, even though Australian comes from British, but whatever.
Uh, we see Deckard. He gets basically pointed to one guy. One guy points him to another one. We get we're starting to get like the kind of like noirish adventure of it, and eventually leads him right to Zora at this club. And I like him, even though it's the future and it's super, like, it's not like a digital, they're actual pictures. That's what I like, is that now it would just be on a phone, just, hey, have you seen this bird? But it's like a physical picture, I think is super interesting. And yeah, basically gets the information that she's here, and as he's looking through the pictures, he sees the one of Rachel and gives her a call. The guy's name is Taffy Lewis. That's the guy. I couldn't think of the fucking guy's name. Who the guy at the bar who's like, hey, my friend's dry, give him a drink.
The
Like
the,
the
the
guy
guy who
he's
owns the
squeezing
strip
on.
joint, is it that guy?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that guy. Uh, Gets on the call with Rachel. Rachel basically tells him to fuck off. I've never had someone like walk out on me before, especially when it's being so charming. I love this. Such a good delivery from Harrison Ford. And we see him backstage, which was frighteningly easy. To be honest, like he's just back there, just surrounded by all these
Where are
like
the
women and like
big black security guards? Like where they at,
yeah,
dude? Like, come on.
yeah. Where's all the skinheads that like the guys who are like, yeah, I went to prison for 5 or 6 years,
Right,
and now
right.
I lead Bible study and do this on the weekends,
Yeah.
um and he walks right into her dressing room. This woman's practically like stark naked with a snake on her, and
She's
he's just like,
gorgeous, by
hey,
the way. The
oh yeah,
the woman that plays Zora, stunning.
yes, yeah, absolutely. I have a feeling like looking at her, I'm like, she looks Australian to me. I don't know why. I don't know. I doubt she is, but yeah, she is strikingly like gorgeous, like that kind of like Princess Diana kind of like look.
No,
It's very, very.
she's from New Jersey. Oh,
Oh, never mind.
she's been in a bunch of stuff. Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Ghost of Mars.
Oh yeah, she's in. I think yeah, she's in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Um, and yeah, she's absolutely a knockout in this movie, and I like her character a lot. And her death is I think one of the ones that really gets to a lot of people as
yeah.
well. It's pretty brutal. And he fakes being basically saying that he represents artists, make sure they're not being exploited, for their jobs.
He's he's basically what he's doing. What he does in he's basically doing what he does in The Last Crusade when he walks into the castle and he's like, "I'm here to inspect the tapestries." I know that's a reference that's kind of lost in you a little bit, but like that's kind of what he's doing here, dude. Like he's so good at doing this. Where
Yeah.
he does this a lot, by the way. Harrison Ford, like he does this impersonation stuff a lot in his movies, and I don't know if it's scripted most of the time or if it's just like, hey, I want to play a character inside of a character.
Yeah, it's like in his contract, it's part of his clause.
Right.
He's like, I have to point at people and I get double character, and I get paid more as the other character.
Right.
All right, whatever you say. Basically what this leads to is her asking him to dry her off, and then she like again she like chops him in the throat. I don't know what she's just like puts she doesn't punch or like slap him. She just kind of pushes her hand out and he goes flying. It's always like made me laugh a little bit. And tries to kill him, but ultimately, she ends up running out of the club.
Yeah.
Yes. And one of my favorite shots of the whole movie is her when she leaves the front door of the club and we start left and cut right and watch her run through the crowd. Like, absolutely one of my favorite shots. I think it's totally gorgeous.
It's totally so I've been listening to this podcast called The Big Picture, and like they're like critics, so they're a little snooty and like they look down on things, but whatever. Like they're like, I like their commentary sometimes, but they were talking about Dune, like the sequel that just came out, and like there's a way that something's shot. And the way they described something was like, I will never forget that for the rest of my life because of how visually insane that is. And I will never forget this sequence because of the way that this is filmed and because of the way, because of what she's wearing, like that clear kind of like jacket that doesn't really achieve anything other than keeping the rain off her. Like, because it's not hiding her body. It's not hiding the fact that she's half naked, But like when we get to it and she gets shot and she falls through what seems like a glass factory. But like I'll never forget this sequence for the rest of my life. Like, you know what I mean? Because of the way it's shot.
No, absolutely. I love the visuals in this. Obviously incredibly striking. It's some of the most time we spend like in the city of Los Angeles. It's definitely a very big like we see it earlier on with Deckard, on the like eating noodles or whatever. But this whole scene with him killing Zora and then Leon and then Rachel coming up, like it's a very big scene that is spent on the ground, and you feel horrible for like the first time you're watching it, and you're just like, oh, okay, but. Obviously, they've killed dozens of people, the replicants, and there has to be some kind of, you can't just let, you can't just let people go like that. But at the same time, there is like, they're slaves, just to put it bluntly, they are slaves. Like they are sentient things being forced to work with no compensation and worked until you fucking die. And they're slaves. And that's why I like of Roy Batty saying that, what does he say? It's like, or painful to live in fear, isn't it? That's what it means to be a slave. And it absolutely, like, I don't think that's literally what it means to be a slave, but I think that the fact that they're just like used like horses, basically, like where they're just run into the ground, and when something goes wrong, they just take them out back and shoot them. And I can't get on board with them killing dozens of people, but at the same time, I can't say I would have done any less in that position. If I were in your shoes and I'm like, well, I'm going to go mine on some rock 1,000 light years away from here, and eventually I'll just stop working and they'll just throw me in a pile. And it's like, yeah, I would probably do the same thing, and I empathize a lot with those characters. Like, it's really hard to call them bad guys in this. I think of them just more as like the antagonist for antagonist's sake. They're the people that were, basically at first kind of led to believe are the antagonists. But I think by the end of this movie, everybody who watches this movie is usually on the replicant side by the end of it. Like you understand, and it's gut wrenching watching Roy Batty and Zora die, and just her falling through the glass, and it's snowing, and like the neon surrounding everybody, and the shot of her face down, of her with the jacket on is so great. And once they flip her over, like her dead eye look is just very effective. I hate that, like just that blank. She just looks like you said, she just looks like a mannequin now. And you're like, God damn it, man. And you feel like you're watching like an animal being hunted, and she's constantly cowering and running, and it really, really breaks your heart. And it definitely, obviously affects Deckard as well, because he immediately is like, yeah, I'm gonna go get a bottle of vodka and get fucking hammered.
Right, exactly, because it doesn't sit well with him. Like he's
right.
It's tough for him to like as hard as his exterior is, like you're still killing something with. There's some emotion there. Like, he had a full conversation with Zora before he killed her. You know what I mean? Like he's able to see that this is something that has some kind of connection or some kind of it's
Right.
able to communicate. It's not entirely inanimate.
Right, 100%. It's like I talked to this thing like it was, somebody had seen it on the street, and then I blew its brains out. Like, holy shit. Um, and afterwards, like I said, goes and gets a bottle, bumps into Bryant, and Brian breaks it down for him. He's a goddamn one man slaughterhouse, four more to go, and he's what?
There's
He's like,
three
no,
more
it's
to
supposed
go.
to be three.
Right.
Right. And you're like, no, Rachel basically has that skin job you VK'd at the Tyrell Corporation. Rachel, she disappeared.
Dude,
I was like, God, that's fucking I love the verbiage.
Such a gut punch, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because that like once he identifies her as a replicant, you're kind of like asking yourself, it's like, wait, aren't they outlawed? Like, if he identifies her, doesn't he have to kill her? And then here's Bryant confirming that. Like, here he is, like, being like, oh no, you are going to have to kill her. Ugh.
Right. Right. And don't worry, she's definitely not making eye contact with you the second my space car hovers out of here. Oh wait, no, she is. She's right there. And I don't know. It just seems so silly to me that all of these fucking characters, like, I can understand Bryant coming because there's been a shooting. He's been alerted. Cool. But then, like, Rachel comes, and then Leon comes, and then, Roger Rabbit and Bugs Bunny. And it's like all these people around the same spot where I'm like, Los Angeles is a huge fucking city right now. So I'm sure in this time, like, this thing is fucking massive. Like, what's with everybody being in the same area? It's a little.
Unless it all does take place within Chinatown. Like, unless we go to, like, fucking Tyrell Corp. I'm still on, like, the whole, like, setting, like vibe. Like, it's like, what is this all in, like, one neighborhood? Surely not, right?
I mean, who knows, man? I don't think so, but I feel like it's for how much of the scale you see of Los Angeles, I think it would be really awful for it just to take place in, like, the same, I don't know, 9 miles, like less than that. You'd be like, oh, this sucks. And we do definitely see how the death of Zora affects Deckard, which I really like. And then him now, well, and this is something I've never really put together until this viewing, but like what you just saw and did to Zora, you are going to have to do to somebody that you definitely have feelings for and are interested in at this point.
Who actually had a conversation with you in your apartment and cried because you offended her.
Right. And it's like you went out of your way to tell her the truth, and you wouldn't have bothered to, like, if you didn't care about this person, you wouldn't have offered any information. Always be like, whatever, just leave. I don't want to talk to you, but there's obviously something there because you entertained it.
And the fact that, like, sorry, just going back to that sequence with Rachel in his apartment. Sorry. The fact that you told her the truth and she visibly got upset, and then you immediately backtracked, like, to try and, like, protect her feelings, it is just so, like, you empathize with her. And when I say you, I mean Deckard. Like, Deckard empathizes with her. So it's like when it comes time to pull that trigger, is he going to be up to the task?
Right. Yeah. Like who is, well, that are you going to be up to the task? And here's a taste of it, by the way, by having to gun this beautiful woman down like an animal in the streets. It's like, God damn, that's brutal. But he knows that eventually, like, that's what it's going to come down to. There's not, I mean, hell, Bryant spells it out for him right then and there. As he leaves this meeting with Bryant, we get Leon, and this is one of my least favorite parts of the movie, just because it's just very awkward. There's something about the fight that's very
just takes place on the side of a road in an alleyway kind of thing,
which I don't, like, absolutely hate, but it just seems very like we just got done with Zora. Like, I think we need a minute to kind of like like we need a minute to, like, live with this, just for a little while, give me one scene in between. That's all I need.
There's also something really kind of, like, jarring here, and I wonder if you notice it too, but, like, when when they're scrapping, when they're like going at it, and like
The gun?
Deckard pulls out the gun, and it looks like there's a frame missing. Like
No, there is.
there is a frame.
There's 100%.
Yeah.
There's 100% a cut there at least.
Right, exactly.
Some kind of cut.
Because like just for the audience, if you didn't catch it, but like, so Deckard pulls out the gun, and just before he slaps it away, there's like a jump, like in terms of like they must have paused or they must have stopped shooting for a second there and then picked it up immediately because there's a shot missing, and it's just so interesting.
Yeah, there definitely is. But I don't get, Leon. Nothing is worse than an itch you can't scratch. I'm like, what are you talking about? like that. Like, is that what you think about life? Life is an itch you can't scratch. Like, I don't know. That's just, it seems like a very odd dialogue to me. But and the whole, the fight and dragging it out, and anybody, if there was a saying that I will ban from movies, if it's like, if I hear this, your movie is losing a point, is time to die. That no, I hate it. I can't. I've never liked that. I hate it when Roy Batty says it at the end of his monologue.
Yes, I don't like that either. Yeah, time to die.
I just, God, and it was 82, and that hadn't been worn. If that had not become like such a huge thing, then maybe it would be okay today. But that is one of the things that has not held up, is that little time to die from him and Leon.
We'll talk about it when we get to Roy Batty's speech, but his speech also was dramatically altered by Rutger Hauer. You know that?
Oh yeah. I think it was a lot lengthier before too.
Yeah,
I think
much more on the nose.
Yeah. But Rachel shows up, thank God, because again, we're all hanging out in the same, I guess, like 4 miles of space, and she shoots Leon in the head, which is, thank God, for someone who's never shot a gun before, that she shot him in the head. And she
with robotic precision, by the way.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh my God, what do I do?"
Right, exactly.
And like puts one in the head and one in the heart.
She engages her like Deadeye mode.
She comes back to Deckard's apartment for a drink with him. I love all this of him getting kind of like cleaned up and just the aftermath of everything. And again, like, God, the lighting on her face when she comes to him and she's like, "Is that what you're gonna do to me when the time comes? Will you come? Will you hunt me down?" And he's like, "I won't, but somebody will." I love that. I don't have the guts to do it, but it's to me, it's kind of like what Superman says to Batman in The Dark Knight Returns, where he goes, "If it's not me, they'll just send somebody else." That's basically what he said. But I love Batman. He goes, "Who do they send after you?" Like that's one of my favorite like lines in comic book. But he basically saying, like, even if it's not me, somebody's going to be coming after you. And he says straight up that I owe you one. We get this really interesting kind of this dynamic between them now, because Deckard, a human, now owes his life to Rachel, a replicant. I just think that's kind of interesting to sit and like sip on for a second. But the image of her, like when she's crying and her mascara is kind of like spilt down and stuff. I love like the visuals this movie has like going for it. And she looks almost, I think part of the Asian influence too is she does look like almost like a porcelain doll.
Yeah, she looks doll like.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yes. And I definitely have seen her in movies and stuff before, but God, they make her look just like absolutely. I think that's one of the big things about the replicants is, aside from Leon, who really got the shaft. Like I love when J.F. Sebastian is like, "You're just so beautiful, perfect," and it's like, Leon? I don't know about Leon. Leon looks like he unclogs drains. Not
like
that
I said, he looks like a fucking garbage man.
Yeah, I was like, there's nothing wrong with that. Got to have those jobs. I understand that, but he does not look. Sean Young, Harrison Ford, Rutger Hauer, Daryl Hannah, the guy that unclogged your grandmother's drain after 4th of July that one year.
Shit.
Like, And we get Rachel playing the piano, which I think is a great scene. I don't know if it's me or Tyrell's niece. Like, ugh, you just absolutely hate it. And Deckard turns into Rocky in the first Rocky movie. Holy shit.
What?
This is aged poorly. He's like, kiss me. Tell me you love me. Tell me you killed my wife. I'm like, it's definitely not aged well, for sure. The fact that the fact that eventually she kind of is reciprocating like of her own accord. But like I joked that in my head watching this, like, is this what consent is like 50 years in the future? He's like, I need to hear you say the words. Like,
this was consent in 1982, dude.
Yeah. This is one of the biggest things that has not held up from this movie, where it's like, oh, this is kind of
this was consent to Ridley Scott. That's what it is.
Yeah, well, and it's weird that it's like, so you're basically banging like a 30-year-old virgin robot. Like, good luck, man. That's not going to have any baggage.
Well, I mean, he essentially predicted the future here, right? Like, this is the
she's Rachel is a Nexus 7. I'm sorry, Rachel is a Nexus 7, the Fleshlight model. Like, okay.
Rachel is essentially the cum dumpster 3000 with anti-drip tray.
I mean, I'm not saying I would buy one, but if there was a Rachel Young who could walk around, or Sean Young, and you could just bang it anytime, and come on, dude. Like,
I mean, look, if there was a Margot Robbie,
I just throw it on it
version,
with a bunch of my roommates,
like a Gal Gadot version, maybe. But yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I still take Sean Young. Nothing against those ones. They're still gorgeous women, but I just think this movie definitely did that. And we're going to cover Terminator 3 after this. Claire Danes. There is something that since I have been like 13, that Claire Danes is like, there is a hill from which she has not moved for 20 years.
Oh, dude. I mean, well, she was like Juliet in like the Baz Luhrmann, she was like, she was the it girl. And then like she kind of got crazy hotter in like Homeland, where she's like playing this insanely like just insane fucking person. Yeah. I completely understand.
Yeah, I love Claire Danes. And speaking of absolutely gorgeous and talented women, Daryl Hannah. We see her in her proper, again, very iconic looking outfit for Priss, the raccoon kind of look, spray painted over.
I have a question. Like,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have a question. Why does she adopt this kind of persona?
I have no idea. I think this is one of those, like, I don't think esoteric is the right word, but it's the first word that comes to mind. I don't think I'm using that right, but it just feels kind of like a little bit of style over substance. Like, what's the whole point of her like changing and doing all of this like in the first place? And like, is she an acrobat model? Like, does she do Cirque du Soleil? Like, she becomes this like, I mean, to be fair though, we've only seen like one scene of her at this point. So honestly, it's like, well, maybe this is just who the fuck she is.
Yeah, I think the answer is because they can, like, because they have the free will to do so. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're literally kind of like just out here rampantly doing whatever the fuck they want because they can, because they're no longer slaves to humanity. So she's just like, I'm just going to adopt this persona for myself.
Yeah, probably. It's like I'm gonna dress myself, for what I want to wear. Yeah, that is. It's got to be empowering as well. And I basically, I love the shot of her waking him up with the raccoon like black stripe, but then the gold eyes like in the shadow of her face is such a striking shot in this, that again, one of those, like, I can't get that out of my brain, of when JF Sebastian is asleep in the chair and that weird like Pinocchio fuck doll is like looking around like, what the fuck is going on? But when she creeps up and gets in front of him, and you see that kind of like that raccoon kind of like trash panda look that she's got going on, it's very, very striking. And we see that JF Sebastian has what is it called? Methuselah syndrome, I think is what he said it's called, where basically he's just rapidly aging. and we get to see Roy again. Roy shows up, and as soon as he starts like making out with Chris, I gotta go cook some eggs, and he just like gets up and leaves the room. He's like, oh god, I gotta compete with that fucking dude. Like, I gotta compete with a guy who looks like he just runs up mountains. Like just super jacked.
I love this aspect of the film, like the fact that these two replicants who have this accelerated lifespan meet this engineer who also has this accelerated lifespan, and now they need to collude. I really dig that.
Yeah, and I like where, I mean, I think it's Roy who says it. He's like, "Your problems are our problems, Sebastian." It's we have the exact same thing kind of going on, and I get like I get obviously everything up to this point, but I will never understand. It's like, why does Roy kill Sebastian? It's just because, and it's like that's the only. It doesn't really make any sense for him to kill him, and I think that if he lets Sebastian go, it definitely loses meaning with him saving Deckard. You know what I mean? Because at this point, like, the only thing that makes sense is if Roy is like, I'm just going to kill every human being that, I can get my hands on, which I don't think is in his character. He just wants to live. I've always found it a little out of character that he kills Sebastian. But then if he just lets him go, it kind of lessens the finale of him saving Deckard. So I don't know. I'm kind of at a toss up of that sometimes. I just feel bad for this character. But basically when they sit down the next morning, he figures it out pretty quickly that they're replicants. And he asks him to do something. We're not computers, Sebastian. We're physical. And then she gets up and does like a rolling backflip. And he's like, see? And it's like, okay, well, I don't think that really proves the point. Like, I'm pretty sure a human being could do that. That doesn't make you like, that doesn't make you a fucking replicant. I love how she's like a head taller than him. Like, that just cracks me up. She's like looking down at him the whole time. Right. Like, that always makes me laugh.
I have this, because I did Google it. Like, I wanted to see what other people's perspectives were as to why Roy Batty kills J.F. Sebastian as part of his quest for more life. So this person says, it is my guess that Roy is incredibly frustrated by the answers given to him by Tyrell, even though he makes suggestions regarding an increased lifespan. The truth was a bitter pill for him to swallow, but at that point, Roy finally realized that his brief life would indeed end shortly and that there was nothing he could do about it. As per his nature that was given to him by the Tyrell Corp, he reverted to type and killed Tyrell out of frustration, which is an oddly human emotion. J.F. Sebastian was a witness to a murder, and so Roy considered him to be something of a hazard to be eliminated because Roy possibly still had some hope of increased longevity. Or he dispatched J.F. Sebastian simply out of despair that his consciousness was indeed limited and now nothing could prevent his death. That's interesting.
Yeah. Either one of those could be valid. But he basically lays it out for Sebastian. He's like, we've got to talk to Tyrell. Pris doesn't. He uses Pris as like the kind of carrot for J.F. Sebastian. Pris doesn't have long to live. Not we. It's Pris. Right. And I was like, yeah, I love he's the manipulation there. And literally like closing him in and wrapping, like she wraps her legs around him and gets her arms around him. And like, dude, they are up in his shit right now, and like, you're starting to get the feeling more and more that they're not asking him.
Right.
Like it's becoming more and more
it's
like
intimidation,
apparent.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, it's intimidation wrapped up in this like sexual kind of thing with him and Pris, that obviously he has something for Pris, the whole reason he probably let her stay in the first place. I'm going to stick my dick in that giant lady. Basically he says, yes, I will take you to see Tyrell, after noticing that his chess game is with Tyrell. And again, I've kind of talked about this already, of them going up into seeing him. I love the lighting and the use of shadow and the shots in the elevator, especially on JF's face, where he just looks like, oh my god, he's like Eeyore. Like, he's like, just fucking kill me now. Like, like he just seems like he's just would rather be anywhere else in the world. And I like the fact that Roy is already like an insanely good chess player, even though he's, I don't know how old he is, I guess 4 years old. He's at the end of his lifespan. But the fact that he is literally playing chess with his like maker, I was like, that's pretty cool. And once they finally get up there, I love the fact that Tyrell doesn't, oh my god, he just says like, hey, how are you, Roy?
Right.
Like, it's
It's
very
like, what's going
what's
on?
up, what's up, motherfucker?
Well,
Like,
just
he
one more
doesn't
thing
freak out at
about the
all.
chess. He's not just playing chess with his maker. He's checkmated his maker. Like he's
Right.
essentially just beaten him at his game.
Right. And I love his reaction. He's a little paused when he shows up, and he just goes, "I'm honestly surprised you wouldn't be here sooner." Like that was his first kind of, and I think that shows a lot of like either really cold calculation on his part, or maybe a little bit of empathy of like, that's what I would do if I wanted to live. I'd find the person that made me, and it's like, but I would have done it before,
Right.
like.
It's a
Baddie's in like his last week.
exactly.
Of
It's a
life.
whole like, what is the meaning of life kind of situation. Like if you had the chance to meet God, would you? You know?
Right, exactly. And he says basically, and this has been debated too. Some people say it's I want more life, father, or fucker. And that's actually been, apparently there are some versions of it where it's fucker. And they took multiple different shots of that. They did father, they did fucker. My version says father in the caption. Sounds just like father, but I have definitely heard versions where it's fucker. And I was like, that's, I don't know. I kind of takes me out of it a little bit. I think I like father better.
I like father better as well. I mean, like, is it supposed to be fucker to show how angry he is, or
I
hold
guess
on, my
so.
version says fucker.
Oh, that's crazy.
Wow. You know what? My Blu-ray, the 4K that I bought, says father, but now, because here I am streaming it right now, because I don't have a Blu-ray player up here, it says, I want more life, fucker. Interesting. And the subtitles say
that's
fucker.
crazy. That's nuts. But two different versions, same movie, because
how
long
cut.
is your
This
movie?
is the final cut.
157.29.
Oh, mine's 151.45.
Wow. Okay. So I wonder if it's like, yours is the final
Mine
cut?
is absolutely the final cut. Yeah.
That's weird. We got to find the missing 8 minutes. That's 8 minutes of shit,
huge.
dude. That's a lot.
That's huge. Yeah. Wow.
That's so strange. I hate it. Like, and this is totally a region thing. It's got to be like, I can't imagine what else the streaming thing would be unless it's like the credits removed. I've talked about this a little bit, but I won't brush up on it too much. But Roy is saying, basically, throwing out all these different ideas of how to save his ass, and you'd see that Roy has tried. He is really trying and learning so much about how to keep himself alive, and basically finds that it's fatal. Anything you try to do is just going to fail. You can't break a sequence once it's been established, because in the second day of incubation, any cells that have undergone reversion mutations give rise to reverent colonies, like rats leaving a sinking ship, and then the ship sinks. And it's like unbelievable, great dialogue, which I don't really think we've talked about a whole lot. Is that there's not a shitload of like dialogue parts in this movie, but I love this interaction between the two of them. And it's it's sci-fi written, but it doesn't sound just like complete jargon. Like there's parts of it where it's like, okay, yeah, that does actually sound like a little bit, like makes a little bit of sense. And Tyrell just spells it out for him. He's like, dude, we have tried everything you were talking about. There is nothing left to do. Like, enjoy your time. He's like, what does Roy say? He's like, I've done questionable things, I think is what he says. I can't remember. I think it's questionable things. And he sits down with him, and Tyrell is stroking his head, and it's a very like father and son kind of scene. I've done questionable things, also extraordinary things,
and he tells him to revel. Yeah, exactly. He's kind of like reassuring him, right?
Right, and trying to, but it's a lot easier to do that when you're space pope and you're 60 years old, and this guy's been alive for this guy gets to stay alive as long as one president at least gets one term,
Yeah.
like like that's as much as this guy gets.
Look, man, I'm kind of sick about I'm sick of all these political agendas being thrust into our movies. Like here you have a fucking gay kiss between these two characters, and I'm not I'm sick of these studios pushing their agendas.
Yeah, that's fucking hilarious. I was for like the first 3 seconds of that, I was like, what where is he taking me with this? And I'm like, where is this gonna go? I want to see more thumbs and eyes. Stop making it political.
Yeah. Put more thumbs in asses.
Yeah. What a way to die, too. Your fucking head, your skull getting crushed by Drago.
Yeah, right. The things with the eyes, right? Like, this is... like, we kind of, like, reached the culmination of the eye metaphor here. But, yeah. Wild.
Yeah. And it ends with a shot of the owl and that big eye kind of looking around as Roy kills J.F. Sebastian. Not a big fan of... Gotta be honest, not a fan of Rutger Hauer's little face like pout in the elevator. I've always thought it was a little out of place. It's a little weird. I don't hate it. I don't love it, but it's always felt a little weird. But I understand it. It's him. I think it's him kind of realizing like, fuck, I wish I hadn't done that. Like, fuck, I didn't have to do that. It's kind of like that remorse of it.
Like it's him like succumbing to his human nature that he doesn't have, but it's still there.
Right. And realizing kind of like ripples in a pond of like, oh, I throw the stone and now I have to watch the ripple. And I didn't think about that at the time.
But it's interesting to wonder whether that regret is emotional regret or if it's logical regret. Like, it's like, damn it, like, do I regret that because Terrell could have been useful to me? Or do I regret that because he was my father and now he's gone? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. No, that's very well put. I didn't think about it that way. I think, and once we get the death of Tyrell and Sebastian, we are like, our movie is on a very fast train. Like, it starts flying through. Like, I think there's maybe...
Oh, we're about to wrap up.
From the time... Yes. From the time... Because a lot of it, again, is the movie kind of... It's like a house with squeaky... floors and windows that kind of rattle, and I feel like it's just this movie kind of like stretching out at the end, not in a bad way. I love
there's a lot of atmosphere setting and tone setting, and
yes. And it's like from the time of him getting to JF's apartment to Roy Batty dying is like 10 minutes. Like it's really not that much time at all. But we'll cover it in just the succession that it happens, because we basically get him showing up to the apartment, him killing Pris, which again was like super I don't know, that not that it takes me out of the movie, like that whole exchange between him and Pris, but I always did find it like all the like he pulls out basically a space Desert Eagle and she backflips at him, and it's like, oh Jesus
dude,
Christ, what the hell are you thinking?
Yeah, I always laughed at this scene, at this kind of death, dude. I'm just the way I feel like Jack Nicholson in The Departed when he shoots that guy and he's like, she fell funny. Like, like, you know what I mean? Like when he shoots her, like her body just goes. It's like, oh, okay.
No, yeah, there is something kind of like awkward about it, and I get that they're basically children, but like their combat belt, like they should know like at least some things about like basic combat,
her like squirming afterward though, like, and the way that's all shot and cut is terrifying to me though. Like that's kind of like nightmare fuel.
It's it feels like Ed 209 at the bottom of the steps in RoboCop. The pig squealing, like, god damn it, that's brutal. But her trying to crush his skull and her thighs, which I'm like, God,
what a way to go.
Please. You can crush my skull like that. And the weird kind of like the replicants always have these weird kind of like, as she's beating the shit out of them, she's like And she just looks at these weird kind of like you have to think it's basically like children experiencing this for the first time, but not every little thing, but like there's so much going on that like I'm sure it's overwhelming for them. But yeah, I do kind of laugh, like she's in mid jump and he's like bang and she just falls over. It's like ow fuck. And yeah, it's definitely one of the harder. It doesn't hit as hard as Zora's death, but it's still pretty bad. It's still very effective. And with the chases on Roy Batty versus Rick Deckard, I love this, like this back and forth. And him kind of like taunting him. I thought you were supposed to be good. All you've got to do is shoot straight, but straight doesn't seem to be good enough. This really interesting like game of cat and mouse that you do find that Roy is kind of a sportsman in a weird way. Like he breaks. I love that he breaks his fingers. He's like, this is for Pris and this is for Zora. And it's like, dude, there's like 2 more replicants that died that you didn't like. He's like, he just broke them for the 2 fingers, like the 2 chicks.
I love that. I love I mean, obviously, like the thematic mirroring, right? Like, so he breaks his fingers, and Roy, in his own way, is experiencing his own body shutting down, and you see him like struggling with his own fingers, and it's just like, oh, like here are these 2 kind of like dueling opposites, like, and both of them are like now experiencing physical pain in the same part of their body, but only one will make it to tomorrow, you know?
Yeah. Well, and the sportsmanship and the back and forth of him, where he's like, I'm going to give you about 5 seconds to run. But what I love is when he shoots through that hole, you're like, oh fuck, he missed. Hey, when it cuts back, his ear is like blasted off. You're like, oh shit, he actually flipped him.
And then the not so subtle biblical reference to the nail in the palms, like,
yeah. That part in the dove and the time to die, I could do without. The dove
coming out of nowhere, I'm just like, what? I know it's so iconic. Yeah. It's so, it's so rooted in history now, but it's just like, just how it pops up. It's like, what where did that come from, dude?
Right. It's like, where is the subtlety, but again, I like this back and forth. I like this chase. All of this looks like a crazy, like music video set. Like, I love the way this all
doesn't
looks.
It look like fucking Gotham in the early Burton movies?
Yeah, well, and that, and it's like weirdly Highlander-esque. Like there's something about like the whole inside of this building that reminds me of that. And Roy taking the white, he kisses Pris and gets that white makeup, but then takes the blood and wipes it down, and you're like, oh shit, like it's not war paint per se, but I like just the kind of like the white and the red all over him. And him deciding, man, I'm going to fuck this dude up. Like when I get a hold of him is pretty funny. And to see Deckard like, oh shit. Like the second he sees him, he's like, I see you. It's like, oh fuck, man. Fuck.
Right?
Like, that would scare
terrifying. Fuck,
that
dude.
would scare the shit out of me. This fucking dude running around, this like 6'6", like Scandinavian motherfucker.
Like fucking, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And him sticking his head through the tile is just like, again, like visually, like kind of funny. But then again, also, it's like I put myself through a wall just to fuck with you. And it's like, God, that's not good. That's good. That's going to be fucked up. What does he say? He's like, you better get it up or I'm going to have to kill you. That's what it is. But it's this weird sportsmanship that I think is very interesting from them. And, we get the unbelievably iconic moment of him catching Deckard right before he falls. And I think it's very interesting, like the kind of dynamic that we're at of this man just murdered all of your friends, the only friends that you've probably ever had. And not only were your lives short enough already, but he made sure they didn't go on any longer. And I find that just a very interesting kind of dynamic. But I think the bigger question is not, is Deckard a replicant? The bigger kind of question is, why does Roy Batty save Deckard? And that was like my question watching this for the first time, is I was like, man, I got to be honest, I am a little bit confused. Like this was just not the movie that I was expecting. I was expecting something like Fifth Element or like Starship Troopers or something,
Oh, me too.
more popcorn flick, Uh, so when I saw this and he catches him just to give him like a Shakespearean level monologue and then die, um, really took me through like a loop. And I think there's something in those moments of me personally. I think it's part of it is Roy Batty saying, my whole life and the short time it's been going on is just surrounded by death, and I'm just tired of it. And for once, I want to make the opposite choice and do the things that these humans will not give me the right to live. But that doesn't mean that I have to go out and kill them. I can make the choice to just I can make the choice to ascend and do the things that they can't. I don't think he's forgiving Deckard. I don't think he's ultimately looking at him and with this like absolute pity and like I've ascended over you. But there's something in Roy's face as Deckard is hanging from that balcony and or whatever he's hanging on, and he sees him struggling to pull himself up, and Roy just hops like a motherfucker right over that thing, and he's like, man, that's so weird, you can't do that. Like there's this kind of like look of, wow, that's kind of funny. But him deciding, oh sorry,
no, just him deciding to save Deckard. So obviously this is something that I've been thinking about this since like fucking English, and I'm not going to take full credit for this because this was kind of like, I remember this being a class discussion. Like I remember this being like a really interesting discussion, and I think where we kind of landed on was so the movie kind of bookends this ending with the opening where Holden is doing the VK with Leon, and the question, as you said, was you see a turtle on its back, what do you do, right? And like the whole point of that question is to locate a lack of empathy, right? Like, so the lack of empathy from the replicant, because presumably the answer to that question is, I don't know, like I wouldn't do anything, right? Like I wouldn't help it out,
right,
because there's no empathy for the creature. But here's Roy beating a kind of VK test, right? Because Deckard's about to fall. He's a creature who's living in fear right now, who's going through this moment, and here he is displaying his empathy and saving Deckard and beating the VK test. So I like, that's where I've kind of arrived. Like I've kind of like arrived at the moment of like,
I like that.
Here he is, like he's overcome the VK test, because you don't see Roy at any point do the VK test in this movie, but this is the test, and this is the what makes him human moment. And to a lot of people, it'll be the speech that follows. Obviously, him kind of like expelling his memories and like him kind of like being like, "This is everything that I've seen. You wouldn't believe what I've seen, but I've seen what I've seen, and this is what makes me human. And now they're just going to be lost like tears in the rain." But it's him saving Deckard, to me, that makes him more human than human.
Yeah, more human than human. No, I agree. I think that's a great interpretation, and it kind of goes into what my thoughts were as well. Of like, there is this kind of like, I don't have to, I can choose not to become what you are, and because I know how you're feeling, because how you're feeling is what I felt every day since I've known I'm going to die in 4 years, and like what you're feeling now is just a taste.
Knowledge through
painful
experience.
to live in fear, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. I love that. It's quite what does he say? It's like, it's quite an experience to live in fear, isn't it? That's what it means to be a slave. And it's like just that kind of like, yeah, just having to sit there and know that your death is coming up, that you'll just stop working someday and that'll be the end of it. That's it. It's super powerful. And I love that him, him talking about these little moments. the movie, we never leave Los Angeles, let alone California, let alone the country, let alone the planet. Even though there's all these off-world colonies, we never see any of them. And our scope is so limited to like, this is probably all Deckard knows is Los Angeles, probably has never been out, never been off-world, never done any of that stuff. And here's Roy Batty saying, yeah, I don't have, like this movie is, including Rick, have never seen anything off of this world. And he's like, I've seen more in a year than you'll see in your whole life. And all of that's just going to be gone when I die. And, that's quite a thing to hit somebody with. But at the same time, he's just kind of like, it's just, you can only fight the current for so long. Eventually it takes everybody. And you can see how hard that hits Deckard, especially after the stupid ass Time to Die. Yeah, Rutger Hauer did have a lot of like influence on this. I've watched like the making of it, and I think it's Hampton
Fancha.
Hampton Fletcher. So, what is it?
Fancha? Oh, Francha?
Fancher?
Hold on, let me see if I can. Shit. It is.
I think it's.
I can't remember if there was an R. Hampton Fancher. Yeah, Fancher.
Okay. Yeah, I think Rutger Hauer said they were doing the table read, and he kind of he basically like took it and really edited it and put in himself and took out some stuff, and he kind of looked at Hampton and he was like fuming. He was so fucking mad. But this monologue. Oh, sorry.
No. So David Peoples and Ridley Scott confirmed that he modified the speech. In his autobiography, Hauer said he cut the original speech by a few lines. An earlier version in People's draft screenplay was, so I'm going to read this. I've known adventures, seen places you people will never see. I've been off-world and back, ... Frontiers. I've stood on the back deck of a blinker bound for the Plutician camps with sweat in my eyes, watching stars fight on the shoulder of Orion. I've felt wind in my hair, riding test boats off the black galaxies, and seen an attack fleet burn like a match and disappear. I've seen it, felt it. And then the original script before Hauer's rewrite was, I've seen things you little people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion, bright as magnesium. I rode on the back decks of a blinker and watched sea beams glitter in the dark near Tannhauser Gate. All those moments, they'll be gone. And that's it. Like, that's the... Yeah. So, like, he added some flair and, yeah, all that.
Yeah, some theatricality.
He added, like, Tears in the Rain, which I kind of really like. I mean, like, it's a little cheesy, but I dig it.
No, I like it. It's it's you singing a melody in a crowded room full of people. It just eventually gets drowned out, But we see Gaff show up again, probably behind the monologue. The biggest line of the movie has got to be, "Too bad she won't live."
That's it.
But then again, who does? I love James Edward James almost. I love that guy. And we get to see Deckard and Rachel making a run for it, but not before we find the origami unicorn, which I love as a foreboding sign of like, it's what Deckard said. I won't come after you, but someone will. And of course it ends up being the guy that's been leaving these little origami things. And, this is, I mean, we should talk about it to some degree. I know people say, oh, Deckard is a replicant. No, he's not. And, personally, I don't think that it really adds or takes anything away from the story. But if you're just talking about just having a fun, like, a fun conversation about it, I don't, the evidence of him being a replicant is obviously pretty heavily sprinkled through the movie of like, how the fuck does Gaff know that, he's having visions of unicorns unless he sees his file and knows, blah, blah, blah. I think there's a lot of like evidence through the movie that he is, but at the same time, I think there's quite a bit of it that like that would kind of ruin your entire story. I feel like, the whole point of the story is a human kind of like coming to see that, like it, basically like having to empathize with these replicants by falling in love with one is kind of the character arc for him. So I don't know, I feel like it kind of ruins it a lot when you're just like, oh yeah, but he was one too. It's like, no, god damn it, no, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like I personally, I would rather keep it out of there. But I don't know, it's not like it's not like a fucking crime to at least like think about it, but I just personally don't need it, I think.
Yeah. So Ridley Scott and Harrison Ford both think that he is a replicant.
Oh, really? I'm sorry. I thought Ford was the other way
No, so
around.
Ford, I think recently, yeah, May 2023. Um, so Ford spent decades arguing that he had played Deckard as a human, but in May 2023 he revealed that this was all a ruse. Ford finally admitted that he always knew Deckard was a replicant, but that he played the character as if Deckard was not aware of this fact. Ford told Esquire that he thought, quote, a replicant would want to believe that they're human, and that this informed his take on the Blade Runner character. His admission, along with Scott's, puts an end to the debate surrounding Deckard once and for all. Both affirmed the anti-hero's true identity throughout the 1982 film and the later cuts. One hinted at all along. Yeah. So
Nice.
I don't
Okay.
love that they gave a final answer to it. I see, this is the thing that I love about like Tarantino and stuff, where he's never going to admit what's in the briefcase, like that's
Right.
but I mean, like,
Right.
you can still do
I
your
think that's fair.
headcanon and stuff. Like, I just don't like. See, Steph and I really disagree about this kind of stuff. Like, she hates ambiguity. Like, if a movie ends on an ambiguous note, I'm just like, no, I don't like. Like, so she's like, no, I don't like that, and I'm just like, I love the ambiguity. I like that we can have a conversation about it.
I do. In certain, there's sometimes where I hate ambiguity just for ambiguity's sake, but I do like having a little bit of, a little bit of tease, because then you can actually have, like you said, a lot more conversations about it. Versus like, nope, that's just what it is. Goodbye. It's like, well, that kind of fucking sucks. But that's Blade Runner, baby.
That's it, man. Holy shit.
That is
Wow.
it.
Wow. Huge.
Yeah, what a huge fucking movie. I'm looking up our thing, because we don't really have any comments on the movie per se, but we have the poll that we put up in the after party, which if you guys want to become a part of that and you're not, it's on Facebook. It's called the After Party. It's all one word as far as as far as I believe. No, it's not. Never mind. But it's the after party. It's the one spot where we kind of like hang out and talk, about maybe like episodes that are coming up, or do you think Blade Runner is overrated? And we like to get people's opinions and stuff on there. It doesn't show me the poll results, but I'm pretty sure that the poll question is, Blade Runner 82 is one of the best sci-fi films of all time, and Blade Runner 2 is overrated. And so far, it seems like my group is winning, where it's one of the best sci-fi films of all
Yeah,
time.
so the results are 65% voted yes, it is one of the best science fiction films of all time, and 35% voted Blade Runner 82 is overrated. I'm kind of in the latter camp a little bit. It is a little overrated, but
Your girlfriend is dead to me, by the way. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think there's a case to be made. I can understand why people do get so sick of hearing about it, but at the same time, it definitely has its place. I definitely think it's earned, um, especially in terms of like classic cinema, of classic cinema and classic sci-fi. It is an absolutely like massive undertaking that was, thank God. And it sucks because this and The Thing and a lot of movies like it fucking bombed when it came out and did not do good, and I absolutely hate hearing that every time. It guts me that it took decades for this, movie to find a real. Shawshank was the same thing. That thing bombed when it came out, but then totally is like one of probably, who doesn't own a copy of fucking Shawshank at some point in their lives, on DVD or Blu-ray, like so many. But I love this movie, and I think that it's definitely got Could you say maybe it's a little bit more style over substance? Yes, but because it is drenched in visuals, it is drenched in atmosphere, and the movie is a walking, like breathing organism. And I love that. Like this whole world is just like so well thought up and so well lived in, that I love being able to revisit this world, whether it be, I think, what is it called? Blackout, which I think is like that moment that happens before Blade Runner 2049. I think they did animated films about it.
They did like 4 short films about it. Yeah.
Which I love that. I'm always happy to kind of revisit this world in small little nuggets. And I'm very happy that we finally have covered this, and looking forward to covering the sequel eventually. And supposedly there is another one being talked about, but just at this point, I would be like, dude, you're lucky you got away with 2049 being as good as it is. Like, don't push it.
You're lucky
with Ridley Scott's track record, he'll hit a landmine.
Right, exactly. You're lucky that you found a visionary director who was just like, okay, I have a way forward. Look, my closing thoughts on this. I really, really dig this movie. I don't think that it's the second coming of Jesus. But like the reasons why I like it are because it's a perfect like seed for what's to come, and that is the conversation we have in movies about artificial intelligence. Like we don't get Ex Machina without Blade Runner. We obviously don't get Blade Runner 2049 without this. We don't get like what's another? Oh, we don't get movies like Her, Spike Jonze's Her.
You don't get The Island.
Yeah, you don't get The Island. You probably do, but I mean, like movies about artificial intelligence that we need to rely on artificial intelligence, and our reliance on artificial intelligence to cheat death, or how artificial intelligence thinks about the end of its programming. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that this really set the stage for Hollywood to have that kind of conversation with itself, and it's interesting that we are like recording this after a strike about artificial intelligence as well.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, like I really dig this movie. I think visually it's absolutely gorgeous. Vangelis is a fucking man. We didn't talk about Vangelis enough, but yeah, like this movie is incredible. It's fantastic.
Bum bum bum. I love the melody to this. You hear that? That's Harrison Ford blowing Sean Young's back out. But guys, we appreciate you sticking. We appreciate you guys sticking around super late, hanging out, enjoying the episode. Well, you hope you enjoyed it as much as we did talking about it. If you want to hang out and check out more of our stuff, a lot of our socials are in the show notes. Then you can find our patreon.com/midnight double feature. Join that, become a member of the Green Room, get 2 extra episodes a month, support the show. We are independently owned and operated, and don't really. We did ads once, didn't do them again. Not saying we wouldn't, but it ain't happening anytime soon. So if you guys want to support the show, that would be the place to do it. And I appreciate you guys hanging out. Sorry again for the absence. I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode, coming back strong, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye.